I'm sorry. Oh, it's Joe.
This is where people that are testifying are going to sit. So you can.
Yeah, because the mark, they need this,
They need that.
for that, yeah.
Not good.
Okay, so they have.
Yeah, clearly you like dogs or you wouldn't pick that.
The room is muted now.
Yes, I did it.
Uh-oh, he just woke up now.
Hi, Susan.
Hi, Eugene.
We are being recorded. It's 6:33. Everybody.
Oh, Eugene's via Zoom.
Hi.
You're highlighted front and center because you're eating and you're gesturing.
Hi, Eugene. I'm gonna make you host right now, okay?
Sure thing.
Make him host.
See, actually, you gotta make that, you gotta make Susan host, right? Co-host. I mean, co-host, yeah.
Are you going to use your?
Oh, Chanel says, please send me the link.
Looks like Chenault is on now.
Oh,
Oh, yeah, there he is.
okay, Chanel.
Oh, there he goes. Chanel, you're mute. Buddy. A baby.
Okay. Okay, stop moving.
Chanel, you're mute.
No, I can't find him because, okay, we'll see Eugene. Eugene, can you, set Chanel and Susan, no, Susan Gammy as co-host?
Yes, hold on. So Chenault and Susan. Where is Susan Gammy?
Are you talking? Oh, I'm not.
That would be Manhattan Community Board 2. That would be,
Okay, I'll put Manhattan Community Board 2 as the co-host.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Give me 1 second. I'm going to get the printout for who's going to be here.
I sent you the spreadsheet with the list of the agenda. It's the other day. But they're all a little cheap.
We have a long agenda tonight. Where are we? Can we get started? I can't wait. Okay. Hi, Katie. Hi. Hi, handsome.
So who's missing? Brian Pate. Right, Brian Pate is
Brian, unless he's not up there.
Right, we should get started.
Big holiday.
Have we a quorum?
We're four.
Okay. I will be just one more moment. Sorry, this put me,
Hey, I'm not.
What is the forum for us?
Sit down.
While we wait for Chenault, I see that the presenter for one bond is listed as Elizabeth Vidal, and I do not see anybody by that name in the list of attendees.
if you want to organize that first presenter, that'll be right there.
You mean on the list that I sent you?
Yeah.
Yeah, Nabil said he would be the one presenting, but she's his associate, Elizabeth.
Okay, who's presenting?
So if someone, if you can raise your hand in the audience, in the attendees, if you can raise your hand, if you are here for One Bond Street. Maybe it's someone that's logged in under a different name.
Cause he said he was gonna be there, Nabil Ishaq and,
Okay, let's start with Greene Street then, if they're not here.
Well, we have real people here.
Shut up. Eugene, is the Greene Street person here?
they're all
Green
having-
Street. Oh, are they
Oh,
all
they're there. They're very there. Okay.
Got
We'll
it.
start with Greene Street then.
Yes.
Does
Well,
Greene
not-
Street have a
it'll be
presentation?
just a moment.
As a-
We have to get the meeting started.
So,
Ava, have you started the recording?
No.
Hi, Eugene,
Somebody-
I sent you an updated presentation for 110 Green Street. So you should-
110 Green.
I sent it to you and to you and to them all. It's like the information that's changed. There wasn't any real changes, but I wanted you to have it before the meeting started. Because you all messed up by the numbers.
So if you can share it on your end for them, since they're.
I will share that. That is the one from 2 days ago, right?
Oh, I just sent you one like maybe, I don't know, 15 minutes ago.
Oh, let me look.
Apologies.
And also just call it up from the website right on the big screen there.
No, but that one was not on the website because I literally just got it.
We'll give Eugene a moment, he'll find it and he'll screen share it. And then you can be made.
Clicking over there, or should we?
Oh.
Who's clicking?
Well, he'll click for you.
Click,
Just tell him
yeah.
to move it forward.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. We're going to see the screen.
It's better for us. to
Susan,
see
tell me
the
when we can
screen.
start.
No.
You said you sent it to me.
Yes, I'd like for that.
Are we ready, Eugene?
I'm still looking for that presentation.
Oh, go ahead. I'll begin then.
Okay,
This is the landmarks meeting for August. There's only one meeting this month. 2023. And we have a number of complicated applications tonight. So I ask everyone to be concise and not repeat. In particular, all the presenters, a number of the presentations seem to have an inordinate number of comparisons and examples. If you would just do 2 or 3 as immediate to the application as possible, and ensuring that they are applications that have been approved by the Landmarks Commission, or they're clearly historic photographs showing an original or a long ago remodeled condition. I'm going to give just a brief introduction. We begin with the presentations, questions from the committee, members of the board, invited guests, and members of the public. And then when it's all done, we have a business session when anyone is invited to stay and observe. But but no one else may speak except the committee and members of the board who may be here. With these, the last 3 applications, they're a bit complex. If the presenters are going to stay, we may come to you during the business session and ask for clarification about one or another things. that sometimes happens, and it expedites things if that can happen. Okay, Eugene, when you're ready, which one are we going to do first?
So I am still looking, sorry, for the presentation for 110 Greene. The last one I have is from August 15th.
Put that up and they can just explain the difference.
Okay,
Post it on the website, but I sent it to you, Eugene, and you, Chanel, at 6:17.
6:17 today,
Yes,
and it should have come from
from my email.
yeah, the last email I have in my inbox is from 5:44.
I don't know, it's a big file. I mean, I just checked my computer and it was sent.
I have it on USB if that helps.
You do, and I just sent it to Eva, so she could post it on our website, and then that enables them to access
Oh,
it as
okay.
well.
Lawrence is the.
Major
Second,
difference,
correct one?
that's just spot, I did like a tiny thing, or are you?
What the chairman just said, we moved a lot of the miscellaneous precedents down to the appendix, so then we highlighted the main ones that are focal, so we don't kill too much time.
So else it just tell them to move. it
Okay,
forward.
are you able to identify the pages that you're going to talk about?
We want to make it easy.
Okay, Eugene, I'm seeing it in my email and I am just sending the updated application to you.
Okay, all right.
I just hit forward, so let me know if you have the updated one that I received from
Thank you, Susan.
Asher.
How did you get it? We didn't get it.
I don't know, it was sent at 6:21, so it was just.
It took long, because I sent it at 6:17 on my end.
I have it. I don't have an attachment though from the one you just sent though.
It should be a link, right?
No, that's just nice, thank you.
Yeah,
I think it's a big file because I'm having a problem.
Yeah, it is a big file.
Can you just use what you have? Because I think the only difference is they moved things that weren't as relevant to an appendix.
Sure.
Just move past that quickly if they tell us.
that. Yeah, let's do that if that's fine.
The same. The design is the same, nothing changed for that. So you can just tell Eugene, when did you skip over some of the pages?
Oh, Eugene,
Did someone just start a screen share of their own?
hi Eugene,
Yes.
I just posted online the latest presentation. So if you want, you can go to our website to open it from there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And we
All right,
begin with
thanks.
this where it is and pick up when,
Yes.
okay. The application is 110 Greene Street to replace infill at the ground floor. Okay, would you begin, please? And just move the pages along, the presenter, if there are things that you're not going to talk about.
Ready?
It's 28 pages.
You can go to the next.
It's the one, right?
Eugene, can you please go to the next slide? We'll start off with that one.
Sure thing.
All right. Good evening, Chair Spence, members of the Landmark Committee. My name is Brian Kritzman. I am the Retail Director of TPG Architecture. I am here with my associate Ahmed El Karimi, along with Danovsky Shiravasa from Kramer 11. We are here to represent our client Balenciaga's proposal for related alterations to the ground floor of 110 Greene Street, which is within the Soho Cast Iron Historic District. Balenciaga is a prestigious, luxurious fashion house founded in 1919 by renowned Spanish hotelier Cristobal Balenciaga. Balenciaga is currently based in Paris, France, and will be occupying the ground floor at 110 Greene Street. Currently, the ground floor building is divided into 3 spaces. The entrance to the lobby of the building is to the north bay and 2 adjacent retail spaces. Balenciaga will be occupying the 2 ground floor retail spaces, which have been vacant for some time now. With that, I will hand it over to my associate, Ahmed.
Our proposal involves alterations to the ground floor to accommodate Balenciaga at this location. It includes subtle alterations to the doors and the window infills in order to create a unified design. The alterations affect three existing key elements of the facade. First one is replacing the existing display windows with a single pane glaze. The second one is replacing the central doors. Next slide, Eugene. And then converting the side door into a display vitrine, along with removing the existing two non-historic display boxes and updating previous tenant flag banners. The alterations will not remove any historic fabrics. Rather, it replaces non-historic storefront infills with a simple, elegant design that will be respectful to the building's history and architectural features. And it's consistent with the storefront streetscape of the Soho Cast Iron District. We will further delve into the historical and the demographics nearby. Next slide, Eugene. Greene Street's located between Houston and Canal. Per LPC designation report, Greene Street is a vibrant area known for its distinct character and appeal to street shoppers. The street features short blocks that make it easy for pedestrians to explore and discover its many offerings. From creative storefront displays to unique presentations, Greene Street provides an engaging and dynamic experience for those looking for a one kind of a shop.
Just to be your friend, we know that.
The building was designed by William J. Dilthey, and it was constructed in 1908, and it is within the Soho Cast Iron Historic District. While it's not ascribed any style in the LPC designation report, it is a contributing building within the historic district. Next slide, Eugene. In our research, we discovered a collection of historic photos dating back to the 1940s through the 1970s. The photos provide valuable insight into the evolution of the building's facade in specific areas where we intend to impact. Per our findings, we see non-historic components currently present. We could see different materials ranging from window to door styles to even detail. Next slide. The history reflects how the ground floor has adapted into a storefront, which has been existing for over 20 years and is now a part of the retail environment and streetscape of the historic district. The existing display window has undergone significant changes over time. The display window transitioned from an operable single pane in the 40s to partially fixed louver ventilated grills with partial glazing. And since then, the bulkhead was lowered and currently a glazing system with a transom receptacle. Next slide, Eugene. In the 40s through the 70s, we see here the existing entry doors. Oh, I'm sorry, Eugene, can you go back one? In the 40s and the 70s, we see the existing entry doors were previously elevated, where they were previously elevated over the sidewalk, and it included a solid sill above the doors. This condition is no longer present, and an entry/egress door is now located at grade. As for the existing transparent entry doors with display boxes on each side, originally in the 40s and the 70s, the existing corner set of doors served as a means of egress for the building's stair tower, where the doors were opaque wood doors that led straight to grade. Since the building's involvement, where the egress stair was removed and the door leading to grade remained, and presently is a set of transparent entry doors servicing the subdivided ground floor for the retail tenant, which is no longer the case. Next slide, Eugene. On the next few slides, we are able to identify unique displays and display vitrines that enhance the pedestrian's experience along Greene Street. Next page. Here we see our direct adjacent buildings where we see a combination of display windows mixed with transoms, similar to what we are proposing. Locations such as 121 and 136 Greene Street feature a combination of transoms above the doors and single pane display windows, and presently have been creating an interactive environment along the streetscape. Next slide. This area features a combination of soffits near window displays at 134 Greene Street and or opaque transoms at 127 and 130 Street. Next slide. On the next slides, we could see a combination of display windows converted to display vitrines, such as in 42 Greene Street and 77 Greene Street, as well as 133 Worcester Street. Next slide. On 129 and 131 Greene Street, we can see how doors leading to grade have been converted to display windows. You can find additional neighboring precedents in our appendix below in the presentation. Next slide. So ladies and gentlemen, here you can see the existing ground floor conditions as they stand today. The lobby entry doors and the northern bay and the adjacent two retail spaces, which Balenciaga plans to redemise and occupy. Next slide. Per Balenciaga's proposed facade alterations, we plan to removing and replacing existing display windows, removing and replacing the retail entry doors. Next slide. Removing retail entry door with side-by-side display boxes and replacing it with a display vitrine. Meanwhile, removing the Felix Co sign and updating the previous tenant banners located on the top of the banner. Next slide. To summarize our intent of scope, our interior of the ground floor will be redemised to combine the two retail spaces into one unified retail space. Next slide. We plan on replacing the existing display windows with a transom with a glass pane display window, along with a soffit set back more than 18 inches from the storefront that recalls the transom. Next slide. Next slide. This is the whole presentation. We plan to replace the entry door, meanwhile maintaining the transom above with a soffit as previously mentioned. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Sorry, Eugene. We are also proposing to remove a side entry door, the side entry doors, along with the removal of the display boxes on each side of the doors, and replacing them with a display vitrine. At the proposed display vitrine, we have provided a footplate that maintains a similar language as the Northern Bay entry doors foot. Because the doors have been converted into a display vitrine, there is no longer a need for the exterior display boxes on each side. Similarly to the proposed soffit at the window display and the entry doors, we plan on carrying the transom effect along that exterior, along the interior facade. Next slide. Next slide. We believe our proposal provides a unified design that remains respectful to the historical fabrics of the building. We believe that these changes are appropriate because the alterations are very limited and only affect non-historic infills. There is no removal of historic fabrics here. They reflect the history of the building and the evolution of the ground floor into a storefront and maintain the proportions of its historic storefronts in the historic district. They will also add the varied storefronts, a lively streetscape to the historical district. Also, most of these proposed alterations are reversible, and for any reason, we would like your support for our proposed proposal here. Thank you so much, and if you have any questions or comments or concerns, I'm here to answer it.
What the cardinal points, the door that's to be replaced is north, south, east, or west?
It's the south.
Yeah, so the northern one is the lobby, the one on the far left, and then the southern one is the door that will be removed to become a vitrine.
The one that's being removed is the south, is that correct?
Correct, sir.
Okay. I have no questions. Susan, if you'll recognize members of the committee for questions.
Is that everything? Meenakshi, did you have anything you wanted? No, I'm here to answer any questions. Okay, that's great. All right. Anita Brandt has a question. Please, Anita.
I do. I have two questions. One is I just want to understand the transom, which is more like looking through a piece of glass to a drop down 18 inches back, which holds a roll down gate and a shade and so on. Okay.
We also have a unique interior condition where we have ceilings and we have a lot of pipes that are running, and it's basically hiding all of those conditions beyond.
You're gonna have a drop ceiling as
We have, it's a very
It's a
interesting.
layered ceiling that is also open above. So this helps create a modesty of the visual above that ceiling, seeing the ductwork.
Look, roll down gates inside, I'm on board. Because getting them off of the side, although this one never had it. Are you doing anything at all to the bulkhead? In other words, I see there's kind of an odd size metal plate under each window. That's just staying as it is.
That's staying as it's.
And then that wasn't on my question. The last one is the door to the south. Vitrine, those that I know you showed an example or two, but that isn't exactly typical in this neighborhood, except people sometimes just do it anyway. But I don't know how everybody else feels about it. It is a real doorway and now it's being converted into a display case.
Right, and we understand that. Just want to make a few points. One is that, I mean, the history of this building is quite interesting because didn't really have storefronts originally, right? It happened, I guess, 20, 25 years later. And I think that, the commission has allowed for these changes to take place as a part of basically the adaptive reuse of these buildings. The interesting thing about the southern door is that originally it was opaque, so it was never transparent, but it was a door, we understand that. Then it became transparent. And I think right now, because the way we're planning to use the space, we don't really need a door. So before it was two spaces, it reflected that. And if you see the plan, that one space, the coffee shop, was actually a fairly narrow storefront. So in some ways, this change kind of acknowledges that the way the space is being used is somewhat different. We think that the opacity of the vitrine itself sort of recalls the fact that at one point this used to be, wasn't transparent. We think that the proportions that we're doing is very simple. It's like a door. It's true, it doesn't have an opening in the center of the seam, but otherwise I think it still retains that. And you do see a lot of variety of vitrines in Soho, NoHo. I don't think it's
less so. There's no frame. It's very
frame.
very minimal.
It's
Okay, I think we've done this. Could we just move on to other questions?
So I guess we feel that we think it's appropriate for all those reasons, and we think that that Soho has a large number and variety of storefronts, and this will fit in. Therefore,
And if I may add, just to complement the soffit beyond, this also gives us a surface to recess our our signage rather than harming the exterior facade of the building. It's recessed within. So it gives us a little complementary feature to accommodate them as well.
While we're on the topic of the display vitrine, I have a question, which is regarding illumination within that vitrine. What is your plan? What is the intention? Will that space be illuminated during hours when Balenciaga is closed?
Regarding lighting, I believe like around 11 o'clock or 10 o'clock, they have a time clock that most of the lights within the retail space would turn off, unless the streetscape has a certain language, which we'll probably get from the building's criteria. We would then accommodate those.
Okay, thank you. Also, there's a relatively discrete signage in your proposal, which is a good thing. But my question is, do you anticipate, or are there other aspects of signage that are not included in this proposal? Or do you anticipate coming back with other signage?
This is the money in the bag shot. And if you guys need us to change anything.
Thank you. Brian Pape, followed by Valerie De La Rosa.
Okay, so I was just on the vitrine again. I was wondering if the setback was due to the Mark's language of 18 inches from the surface of the glass.
Could we see the picture of the vitrine while it's being discussed, please?
Well, the vitrine has that too, the dropped in the back. Doesn't show on this, does it?
so it doesn't show on this.
Bricks and back behind the brick.
Yeah, if you go to, there's this, and there's a better shot, which is
I think it's,
of the display.
there it is. Wait, go forward one, Eugene. Oh, that one's actually right there. You could zoom into that section on the right. So you can see how it hides the layers of the ceilings. There's an air curtain in certain areas. So at the entry door, this fan basically goes through our retail space.
This door.
I'm sorry,
This is the door.
but the same band is carried through the whole facade on the interior. It's a continuous band.
You're gonna show me the door, the actual vitrine. I'm getting all
There's,
excited.
well, there is one there. So if you go, Eugene, I think 2 pages down.
We have a detail.
No, we do. Yeah.
Yeah, we have.
Down a few slides. I'm sorry, Eugene.
So this is 2 slides back.
No, down. I'm sorry. Like, keep going forward too.
Keep going forward. So back, are you saying you want to go back a slide?
No, go to like LPC 16. So right now you're on
Okay.
LPC 14. You're going up.
Okay, so this is LPC 16.
Oh, no, I meant like from the title block. You see how it says LPC 12 in the screen? It's, you need to go down 4 pages, I believe.
Oh, okay, sorry, I was going by the
No worries.
table of contents. Okay, there we go.
So, go to the next one, Eugene. I'm sorry.
One after this, then.
And then
Yes,
the one after that again. I'm sorry, one more time. And then the next one.
okay,
So in this location, the building actually steps in. So our goal is to not harm the building's current stature. So all we're doing is replacing those doors with this window vitrine. On the inside, you can see that there's a beam that's offsetted. We're not showing any sort of ceiling treatment there, but within our interior, we do plan on extending all of those ceilings on the inside, which you see better on the other sections, but that speaks a little bit better when it comes to the existing structure, the sprinkler lines, the HVAC, et cetera. But here you can see how it's a very minimal effect on the street. It's set back 18 inches on the typical windows and the typical entry door. And then here we did not add any sort of signage as it brings it very close to that existing transom. So we just maintain the coloration of the actual soffit that complements the interior to the exterior and the wall.
So it's the gate that comes down and the overhead rolling grill.
That's correct.
About 18 inches behind the glass.
Correct. It's set back.
Okay, and all that rest of the display and signage and all that is behind it.
Correct.
That's all I have.
Valerie. Hi, I'm Valerie Delrosa, one of the committee members. So just to confirm, in the 4 work areas that you've identified, that you're only removing that what you're removing is all non-historical, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Valerie. Brendan, I think your hand was.
Brendan Fitzgerald, member. So you mentioned the community, I'm in the vitrine, we have a lot of vitrines in the doors, have doors and modified into vitrines before.
Yeah, it was on, I think it was on slide. Eugene, if you can go up to LPC 09. So it's
sure thing.
So in this slide, we could see how doors were transferred into a opaque vitrine window as well. Certain windows in the previous one as well. Previous slide, Eugene. You could see vitrine windows directly onto the streetscape and also a door that was previous, like 42 Greene Street was that was a actual door that was turned into a display vitrine in that location as well.
And approved.
I believe so, yes. Everything that was
That's
there.
unlikely. That was.
But to be honest, we can't, that wasn't our project. We can't. confirm
But we
those.
like to see approved examples, not what somebody thinks.
You mentioned the lighting and existing streets. So does that mean that if the vitrines are lit in the street all night, that you will also?
If the street's doing that, yeah, we will maintain the integrity of the street. So just to maintain the continuity and the respect of the street, if people are going to be doing that, or if the building has a certain language where the lobby doors are illuminated and they want the rest of the ground floor illuminated, we might have to accommodate that.
Generally, the lights will be controlled by a relay panel, so they'll be timed as appropriately needed to turn off at a certain point, so they're not on all night.
I wish everyone would.
Are there other questions? I'm lost, Susan. I'm having trouble hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Are there any other questions here in the room?
Okay, my only comment is that there is such absolute strict symmetry in the building, miraculously preserved through the time. I would not like to see it disturbed by the vitrine. Perhaps mannequins behind the door or something. Okay, if that's it, are there members of the board here?
Yes, there are. Does any member of the board or any member attending remotely?
You had another question, Brendan?
Or does anybody want to speak? That's the,
You can take that.
Oh, I have to. You can have-
Well, they can't hear you.
LED screens.
LED screens? No, we don't have any LED screens.
Okay.
and
That's-
any members of the public wish to speak?
There was a hand raised by Jeffrey
Okay,
Rowland. I promoted
just
him.
one thing I didn't say before, brevity. The public are limited to 2 minutes and ensure that you're speaking about this actual application. Thank you. Okay, Eugene.
Okay, Jeffrey, you may speak.
Yes, just quickly, the vitrine, it looks like it has an area above it that is going to invite for, I guess, birds to nest in or other animals. And I'm wondering what you do to prevent pigeons from collecting in there and nesting. And otherwise, I think it's a very handsome idea. I'm concerned about it getting filthy with nests that.
They're well dressed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
All right, is there anybody else with a question for the applicant of Greene Street? All right, Chenault, there do not appear to be any more questions, so I think we can move on. Before we move on, can we please make sure that let's see if anybody from One Bond is here now. If you are here, Bond, please raise your hand.
I think you have to get on the attendees list, don't you, Susan, to see?
Yeah, I already saw it. There was
Oh,
no name that comported with our spreadsheet.
okay.
Would you guys like us to move?
We're done with you. Yes, thank you so much. I didn't mean it that way, but yeah.
Susan, is there anyone from Bond Street?
Here to be anyone from Bond Street, so let's move on to Horatio Street.
Okay, I will.
On 92 Horatio Street, the application is to apply new brownstone
Thank you.
stucco facade for the entire ground floor, install new wooden entry doors in the existing opening, and replace existing window security grills. When you're ready, please.
Hello, everybody. My name is Peter Story. I am the architect on this project here. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes. Yes.
Great. Okay, I will be brief. I know you guys have a lot of things coming up here. Let me just share my screen. No. Okay, can everybody see my screen now?
Yes, thank you.
Great, awesome. I like it when things start working out this easily here. Okay, so just to orient everybody, the building in question is 92 Horatio Street at the corner of Horatio Street and Washington Street. We are at the southeast corner, and the view we're showing you here is taken from the northeast corner. So we're showing you the catty corner view. To jump into the presentation, we are at a unique position here at the very corner of the Greenwich Village Historic District. Just to the north of us is the Gansevoort Market Historic District, and just to the west of us is not a historic district at all. If you look at the buildings in the top right corner of this image, 99 Jane Street is directly to the west. This is a residential building built in the 90s. And the other one is 87 Horatio Street, which is an older building, but distinctly sort of more industrial character building from the area's old days as a meatpacking district there. The other note on this slide is that the building in question is actually started out as a collection of 5 separate buildings here. The 3 to the north, so that's up in this map, are all designed by the same architect as a sort of trio of buildings. The architect's name was William Jose there. And then the 2 to the south, marked 41 and 40 here, are also designed as a pair by a different architect at a slightly later date. They were all combined together to form one building in the 20s there, and it is 100% residential at this point. But we will take you through some of the historic photos. So this is a photo looking from across the street on Washington Street here. This is the 1940s tax map photo. As you see, at the time, the building was residential above with storefronts below. And in the leftmost tax map photo, we are seeing to the left the 3 buildings designed as a trio. You see that they're sort of united by the cornice at the very top with the half round decorative detail. And then on the left of that photo and on the right of that photo and in the rightmost photo are the 2 southernmost buildings that are of a character with each other, but distinct certainly from the 92 Horatio. Or I'm sorry, from the 3 buildings at the north there. This is a view from the corner and from the Horatio Street side, also from the 1940s tax map photos. In the leftmost photo, you're primarily seeing 88 Horatio, which is the building directly neighboring our building, but you do get a glimpse of our building to the right of that building. So this was the secondary facade back in the 40s and when it was originally designed there, and sort of back of house for a restaurant. And in the right photo, you can see if you squint, the entryway to the building. I think there's someone pushing a pram into it at this moment here. There was a restaurant at the corner, and then storefront started after that restaurant there. The immediate surrounding context, this is a larger photo of 88 Horatio Street. This is directly to the east of us here. Notable in that we are using it as inspiration for a number of details, notably the sort of strong horizontal banding, the sort of plain detailing on it, the half round cornice banding directly above the arched windows there, and the strong sort of darker base. A snapshot of the building in question throughout time. 1940s, 1980s, where it got this beautiful green paint job, and then our current day conditions, which are a little sad, to be honest. There's peeling paint over a skim coat over the existing brick that was on that Horatio Street facade there. Most of the detail, unfortunately, has been lost over time. There's no historical detail on the ground floor. Even things like the half round on the top cornice has been removed and lost to time. Some of the metal grills have been lost to time as well. Jumping into our proposal, just to recenter everybody, our proposed scope of work is sort of dashed in this line here. We're really just looking at the ground floor of the building. This is as much as it's a co-op, as much as we'd like to redo and repoint the entire facade, we do have some budgetary limitations on this project. Jumping into the design, the top image is the current image of the Horatio Street facade. So this is looking from the north side of the street looking south. The top image is the existing, and the bottom image is our proposed. So the big move here is that as you'll see, looking at the top image, the windows, when this was converted from a sort of commercial ground floor to an all residential building, windows are sort of haphazardly punched in this facade. They don't align with any of the windows above. They don't have any particular rhythm to them, similar to the 88 Horatio Street next door, which has a nice consistent rhythm. So our goal in the design was primarily to help organize this facade. And we do that by means of these strong vertical elements that you see. They are excuse me, regularly, oh, my fault, regularly spaced. We found a rhythm that happens to work with the existing window locations. We are not proposing to change any of the window locations. That's simply not in the budget, nor are they willing to disturb any of the residents. We're replacing the existing entry door with a new entry door in the existing opening. As much as we would love to do sort of a glass transom light above that, we have limitations in the lobby with ceiling height. So unfortunately, the glass transom was not possible in this proposal. Formally, in our proposal, we are combining sort of the historic material of stucco brownstone. So everything you're seeing in the sort of warm gray down there is a proposed stucco brownstone, and we'll get into more detail of that in the forthcoming slides here. We are building up profiles of this cornice banding to mimic some of the cornice banding in the original storefronts that we saw on the tax map photos there. And we're proposing sort of a very simple half round profile that, as I mentioned before, sort of mimics the half round profile of 88 Horatio Street there. These are our elevational removal and proposed drawings here. Currently it's a skim coat of cementitious material over brick, and we're proposing to remove as much of that as possible. It's been painted 1,000 times, and then go back over that with the brownstone stucco. We're also replacing the window grills with something we feel is sort of equally simply detailed, but also, and we'll get into the materials, but also a painted cast iron. And that. Looking at the materials in a little bit more depth, the base of this proposal is sort of a smooth textured brownstone stucco. And then there is a band at the top that is a more textured brownstone stucco, and we'll show you the precedent for that slightly later. The goal for this is to sort of reinforce that horizontal banding of the building to accentuate the shadow lines of the cornice. We only have so much depth we're able to work with in this facade due to code restrictions. And then for the door, we're proposing a sealed mahogany, a matte sealed mahogany that we're hoping with the addition of an 18-inch projected canopy above it will weather a little bit, but stand the test of time for the most part though. Moving around to the Washington Street side of the building. So this is where you start to see the distinction between the three northernmost buildings that I showed you in the original historical map and the two southernmost buildings. So if you look at the top image, they are made distinct by that dark band of coins that separates the two, and then you'll see cast iron columns that start where the window pattern changes that marks the separation between those buildings. And while all these 5 buildings are technically part of this building, the distinct character of the two southernmost buildings, along with the fact that there are some more surviving details, really there's no surviving details on the 3 northernmost buildings to the left here, led us to feel that treating it differently than the rest of the building was the correct response here. The 2 southernmost buildings, our proposal there is really just to retain all the historical detail that's currently existing in the facade, and then recreate that on the 2, I believe it's 2 missing cast iron columns. We are proposing to recreate it in stucco due to budgetary limitations here, but we're also proposing to treat or to color that stucco slightly differently in order to better match with the limestone headers above the windows at the top of the building, or at the higher floors of the building, I should say, which you'll see if you look sort of up around the fire escapes area there. Again, I won't go into too much detail on the drawings here, but the same things are being proposed to be removed, stripping back the existing cementitious layer, removing the window grills, where possible, replacing the doors on the two southernmost buildings and just replacing them in kind with new doors that function a little better to be painted to match the surrounding stucco. Looking at materials a little bit closer on this, you'll see in the top right corner, the cast iron details here are mostly present. Again, there are a couple of them missing, and we're proposing to sort of recreate them in stucco and paint them to match. Jumping into the details, I'm trying to move as fast as possible, but let me know if I'm going too slow here. Looking at some of the inspiration for the buildups and profiles on the Horatio Street side. So this is all the way working from left to right. This is a close-up of the rendering of one of the window bays. The cornice banding at the top that you're seeing in the section drawing there is corresponding to a couple things. First, as I mentioned before, in the lower right-hand corner, the double-lined horizontal cornice of the original storefront facades, but also the half-round profiles of 88 Horatio Street. And then in terms of the depth that we're proposing to project it, we played off of the depth of the existing window headers on the upper floors. So if you look at the color images in the center to the right of this slide, those are the existing window headers on the higher floors. That's me standing out on the balcony, putting a tape measure up against them there. So, and our hopes here is that there's sort of a symmetry between the shadow lines created by these window headers in the higher floors of the building and the shadow lines created by the cornice banding at the base of the building. Similarly, this is the same rendering detail all the way to the left, but we're now looking in plan section here. The profiles again are just to keep the building simply detailed and play off of that simple half round banding that is directly next door at 88 Horatio Street there. The verticals also play off of traditional sort of verticals for storefronts. And the hope is to sort of recall this building's former life as a storefront without being too literal about the detailing on it. These slides are just to sort of compare and contrast the profiles between the section details, or the vertical section details and the horizontal section details. The profiles are very similar. And then looking at the proposed entry door, we are proposing to continue the same profile and bring it out to create a small canopy, as I mentioned before, that surrounds the sort of wood infill and then two wood swing doors that are again replaced in the existing opening of the building. Quickly looking at some precedents from the Greenwich Village Historic District, but also sort of similar historic districts. Starting on the bottom row, looking at examples of sort of simply detailed brownstone stucco that has some texture to it. So the image that is second to the right on the bottom row is where we took our inspiration for the textured banding that is at the top of the ground floor. The image all the way to the right is looking at that sort of rounded, very simple profile as in historical precedent. And then at the top right, just looking at giving an example of wood doors paired with brownstone. In terms of the color tone, I think the center image here, which is from the neighborhood, is most representative of what we're going for. Something that is a bit muted, pairs well with the very orangey brick that we have, but also gives the base of the building a nice solid presence. And then this is just sort of a summary of our design notes and goals, but that is the end of our presentation.
Thank you, Susan.
Does anybody here in the room have a question, have any questions? Anita,
I
please.
always have questions.
Anita, could you reposition yourself somehow or check the microphone?
Of course, is that better?
Yes.
Better? Oh, the mic, I have to talk to the mic, okay. All righty, I have a couple of questions. While we're on this brownstone conversation, the color is striking me as very not brownstone-y and very gray concrete-y. Is that what you saw too? So I would just say that concerns me. The other question I have is with the front doors, you have this big panel of presumably veneer wood, since they don't sell mahogany that size. And from my experience, it will very, very quickly look tacky. It will always look like it was a glue-on. So I would strongly suggest you provide some molding, some relief so that you don't, it's like magic wood. That wood doesn't come like that in a big slab, and it wears very badly. And it might look fine if you do give it some moldings and so on for a better quality. And then the last thing, and it may be I missed it, is you talk about the ironwork for the windows, but I don't think I've seen it. Did you show? Or is that part of your application or what?
Yeah, let me go back to the drawing of it here. Hold on. While I'm finding the page, your point is well taken on the mahogany. Our hope is to find a thicker slab of mahogany and use that, but if short of that, we will absolutely go to a panel detail. If we could find
for you to walk up there in 10 years and go, oh my God, I didn't do that.
I'm sorry, I missed what you said.
I'm making a joke, but I don't want you to walk by in 10 years and go, oh my God, that's not my work.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, your point is well taken. Yeah.
Are you also scoring the brownstone into blocks, or is it now magic stone? It's like stucco with no articulation of the blocks?
We're not proposing to score it into blocks. We're proposing to texture it at the upper band here, but also keep it smooth. And I think the section
really has nothing to do with brownstone, what you're talking about. That's not brownstone composite, or it's just magic concrete.
It's a stucco mixture that has that mica in it that makes it, it's what everybody applies to their place that
No, I know it well. All right.
Yes.
Well, you got my point, I'm sure.
I got your point well, yes. Yep. So it's a little hard to see here, but the window grills in the rightmost or in the leftmost rendering image here, we're looking at just 3 simple verticals with a loop, just to keep the detailing simple, sort of in line with the aesthetics.
Well, I know you know, but I don't know because I can't see it. It's 3 simple things. I'm sure it's fine, but I can't see it.
Okay,
So
we'll provide you with a better detail.
So much reflection going on.
It's hard to see.
There's a lot, maybe too much reflection. I agree.
Okay, anybody else in the room with a question? Now, how about any other committee members or community board members? Question? All right, how about members of the public? Are there any questions from the public?
A unanimous yes is what it sounds like there.
All right, there don't appear to be any other questions, so thank you very much for your presentation.
Okay, great. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. And I think we can now move on, unless somebody has shown up from Bond Street, in which case please raise a hand. But otherwise, let's move on to 338 West 12th Street.
The application is to reduce the existing fourth floor, construct a new rooftop stair bulkhead and mechanicals, construct a one-story rear yard extension and alter the rear facade, excavate and alter within the horse walk.
Great, and I have promoted Sarah Ripple to present for 338 West 12th. If there is anyone else on your team, if they could raise their hand in the attendees, and I will promote them. Otherwise, Sarah, you're free to begin.
Okay, thank you. I can go ahead and share my screen.
You should be able to, yes.
Wonderful. Okay, can everyone see that?
Yes.
I have
Okay,
another, is Randy Coral also part of your team?
yes, please
Okay,
do
I will promote him.
All right, good evening. Thank you all for your time this evening. I'm Sarah Ripple with Higgins, Quaysbarth and Partners. We're the landmarks preservation consultants on this project. I also have Randy Correll, an architect from Robert M. Stern Architects on the call. And I believe Karen Thomas may also be in the meeting representing ownership from Karen Thomas Associates. So I'll be presenting. The three of us are available for discussion and to help answer any questions you might have. So moving right into it, this is a proposal, as you mentioned, for 338 West 12th Street. It's on the south side of the street between Washington and Greenwich within the Greenwich Village Historic District. It's an 1859 to 60 Italianate style brick row house, 3 stories plus attic. It is one of a row of 3. You can just see the other 2 in the sides of this photograph here. And that row still exists today. Looking at elevation, looking at these 3 together, it's 336, 338, and 340 West 12th Street. This project is 338, located right in the middle. We have the primary facade and the rear facades here side by side on the left and right. There's a fair amount of staff level restoration work and updates that are being proposed as part of this that we'll touch on later on as part of background information for you. And also commission level scope items, including at grade alterations within the horse walk entry here next to the stoop, including construction of a new partition wall set back behind the historic gate, which will remain, and then above the cornice, setting back the existing altered 4th floor, construction of a stair bulkhead, installation of mechanicals and railings, and extending the existing chimney. Looking at the rear, we have a small 1-story rear extension just at the parlor level, new windows and doors also at the basement and 2nd floor, and new upper floor windows as well, lintels and sills actually to match details that Landmarks approved for 340 West 12th Street. The other piece of the rear scope is reconstruction of the upper brick facade to match the reconstruction that happened at 340 West 12th. And we'll get into that in a little bit. But overall, the changes at the front and rear facades will improve the reading as a row, which has kind of been lost over time due to changes to each of these buildings over time. And taking a look at that in these historic photographs, interestingly, all 3 experienced the removal of their stoops. You see basement entrances at 336 and 340, an at-grade entry at 338 where the project is taking place. The whole ground floor of 338 was reconfigured to incorporate this additional at-grade basement entry. There are some other changes, including the loss of cornice, these kind of extended parapets, the loss of historic windows at 338. They've lost some things over time that used to tie them together, but they still read a bit as a row. Historically, general size and massing is still there. The window alignment and of course, the horse walk entries that you can see, all three of them in this middle photograph. This is 336, this is 338, and that's 340 on the right. Taking a look at the historic plans quickly, there are also some changes over time that we can read at the block level. It's believed that originally each of those three buildings in this row had a rear building or stable accessed by the horse walks that they each had. And you'll note that each one of these also shows a historic one-story rear extension. As early as 1930, but shown here in the 1955 map, that rear building at 338 had been removed. So that purpose for the horse walk was thereby severed, so to speak. And then there's a few changes actually between 1955 and current. But you also see kind of the general changes that happen throughout the village of, consolidation of lots and construction of larger buildings with some kind of row houses mid-block. So here's our row of three, as mentioned, each considerably modified over time since the 1940s, the removal of stoops, and then as you'll see, reconstruction of each one of the stoops all just happened within the last 20 years. The cornices have been restored and replicated, although 336 still retains that raised parapet, and 338 still has the non-historic 1/1 aluminum replacement windows. A closer look at our ground floor conditions and those horse walk entries at each of these three buildings. On the left, you see 336 and 338 together. These two entries have a relationship, given their adjacency and the details. They both have historic cast and wrought iron gates and an at-grade entrance. 338 especially has a dense, thick cast iron grid that's a little hard to see through, while on the contrary, 340 is more removed and has different details. Non-historic wood paneled door and two-light transom. It's been recessed to the excavated basement floor through a series of steps. This is all approved landmarks changes. And then just two shots looking at the stoop. As a reminder, this is a reconstruction from 2004. So the scope here includes cleaning and restoration, as well as lowering this entry. I think that you can see my cursor, but lowering this, this entry level in order to allow for an at-grade entry to the basement. So the resulting changes there are just two more steps added here, and then a new gate, taller, but matching this one.
Excuse me, would you be clear in all this? What is for our consideration and what has been the landmark staff has?
So the changes at the horse walk and the lowering of this areaway are for comment.
Okay, thank you.
Of course. So then moving on at the rear, we're looking at 338 in the middle here. You see those replacement windows and irregular window pattern. And you can see brick discoloration due to mechanical grinding. We believe that this facade had been coated previously, and that coating was removed in a way that caused tremendous damage to the brick. Also visible at the two neighboring buildings are complete rear facade reconstructions that were LPC approved. So at 336 on the right, of course, this is a much more modern design with a different type of brick. This was approved by Landmarks in 2004. And on the left is 340 West 12th. This was approved in 2016. It also had the irregular window pattern, but it was regularized under the LPC approval. So our intent in this proposal, given the fact that this row has kind of lost the things that bind them together as a row, the intent of the proposal is to match some of those approved details at 340, including the exact brick, the same cast stone lintels and sills, and matching the parapet height in order to more closely relate 338 and 340, and to improve reading as a row, at least between these two buildings. So a couple detailed photos just to show, how the brick at the rear has been degraded. You can see a high level of material deterioration and the loss of the fire skin, which is that protective outer layer of the brick. So this leaves the facade vulnerable to moisture intrusion and further deterioration. In each of these photos, you can see the circular grinding marks left from that mechanical grinder. It's stronger in some photos than others. But in the lower right, you can actually kind of also see that the brick has this sort of wavy appearance because it was ground down irregularly. And then a couple more to show the general conditions overall. We have structural cracking through the bricks and sills, significant spalling and material loss throughout the facade. There was the wrong mortar used, and so some efflorescence and, indicating moisture issues with the masonry. Step cracking and brick displacement. And notably in the center photo, this is 338 on the right and 340 on the left. 340 is the one that was recently reconstructed. And you can tell on a sunny day from the shadow that 338 is it's visibly out of plumb with the neighboring building. So all in all, a lot of conditions that spell significant trouble for the rear facade. So as mentioned, part of the proposal is to reconstruct the upper floors with the exact same brick that was approved for 340. And it'll physically knit these two buildings back together and also critically provide 338 with a functional rear facade. So a couple photos to just place you at the upper levels. The bottom two show you the historic fourth floor. This was the attic level. You can actually see the shadow here of the historic roof line that slopes from the front parapet up to the back. This was scooped out and set back, an alteration approved by Landmarks in 1999. It's clad in a very utilitarian corrugated metal cladding, nothing special, but is entirely non-visible from the street. At the upper photos are just typical conditions at the roof. It has skylights, mechanical vents, and the existing chimney here near the southwest corner. And you'll also catch views of the approved additions or construction at 340 in the top right, and in the bottom right, an existing studio window that was added to 336. So each of them have, again, kind of undergone some changes over time. But none of this, amazingly, is actually visible from the street. Okay, so to look at this street elevation scope, as I noted, and I'll just touch on it briefly, but there's a lot of staff level restoration work, good restoration work that will be done, including masonry repairs and restoration of the brownstone elements and the base. All of the metal elements, including the areaway and the cornice, would be refinished, as well as that historic horsewalk cast iron gate would be restored and refinished and kept in place, including, I think, notably also new windows that match the historic configuration that we see in the tax credit photographs. So the main change here, of course, is at the roof. We have that setback fourth floor. This western part will be set back further and clad with new gray painted wood paneling and a new door system. And the western half will actually, the eastern half will actually stay as it is now, but will be glazed. And there's a wood trellis that runs across the top at the line of the existing fourth floor. None of this is visible from the street. And then at the roof, as noted, again, the railings, the bulkhead, mechanical, and the chimney extension, all of which was mocked up and non-visible. This is just a detail elevation to show you what's going on. It's hidden scope, so to speak, what's happening underneath the stoop and behind that historic horsewalk gate. As we mentioned, this areaway will be dropped for another 2 steps, and a new door will be put in at the building. And then on the left here is the alterations within the horsewalk. So it's a new interior partition within the horsewalk. The historic gate will remain in place and the partition will be set back 2.5 feet and finished with this black painted faux door. The existing horsewalk has a 5'2" interior clearance. This is a very low head height and makes the horsewalk practically unusable. Also, given that the rear building was removed in the early 20th century, the horsewalk does not connect back to a rear building any longer, and the passage has somewhat lost its purpose. However, as proposed, finishing this setback partition with the faux door will infer the sense of passage and recall that historic use of this space, and the dark finish will allow it to recede into the shadow behind the historic gate so that the appearance from the sidewalk will remain largely intact. And then that's just some detail elevations to further illustrate what we were just discussing. The changes to the non-historic stoop compared to the existing conditions in these photographs. And then that hidden scope, the actual proposed north elevation with that historic gate in place, and then kind of cut away to show that hidden scope, the door and partition within the horsewalk, and the new door under the stoop. So changes to historic horsewalks have been seen by your committee and landmarks before, and the key has always been finding an appropriate and sensitive way to make the changes. So for reference, we have these 2 properties from the district: 61 Bank Street, which was approved in 2008, and 83 Horatio Street, which was approved in 2017, where notably the area of the horsewalk was incorporated into the interior space at the basement level, and a new door with glass lights was installed at the exterior in order to maintain the reading of the horsewalk at the primary facade, which is very much similar to the intent of the proposal at 338 West 12th. Some detail elevations at the upper levels. We're looking at that setback 4th floor. The glazing at the eastern half of the existing 4th floor, and that setback wood paneled clad portion with the trellis above, and looking in section at each of these portions to show how that trellis only extends to the point that the existing 4th floor currently hits. So none of this will be visible from the street. Okay, so the rear elevation scope, I'll work from the ground up. The rear yard will be regraded to allow for, or dropped to allow for, an at-grade entry from the basement level, similar to what has been approved previously at both of the neighboring buildings. At the basement facade, which will remain in its historic plane, new multi-light steel doors and the horsewalk opening, which is currently enclosed with a non-historic door, will be bricked in. At the parlor floor, this features the minimal 4-foot, 10-inch extension, with also multi-light doors and windows, and a wood enframement and entablature. The 2nd floor remains at the historic plane and just has new windows and doors. And then, as mentioned previously, the 3rd and 4th floors will be reconstructed at the historic plane with the exact same brick that LPC approved for the neighboring building, and new window alignments also to match the neighboring building. The parapet will be raised to align with both of these buildings, both of the sister buildings. So overall, the design of the extension and the new windows and doors are in keeping with typical extensions approved throughout the district and was approved at the neighboring building. But importantly, it will realign more closely 2 of those buildings in this row and improve their historic relationship.
And
This
are
is,
the collar and the floor above also in metal?
yes, they're metal casements. Metal casement windows. This is just an elevation with those railings removed so that you can see the full composition of these windows. Notably that, you know, they align with the windows above and maintain that brick massing at the corners, which is a typical, you know, requirement or desire for Landmark's properties. So taking a step back now quickly, just to kind of see these, see this proposal back within the context of the full row. At the primary facade, the proposed restoration work will improve and better establish the historic reading of the row, and the alterations at the roof will be non-visible. And at the rear, we see 338, which is in the middle, and 340, which is to its left at the rear, reading in harmony, notably at the upper floors. And as a row, all three are now consistent at the parapet height. So a lot of those changes that have occurred over time to kind of dissimulate them, this proposal kind of at least ties two out of the three back together. So just an existing and proposed long section existing on the left and proposed on the right, showing how the existing cellar level will be excavated and extended under the rear yard, but leaving the 5'9" at the back for plantings. The level of the rear yard will be lowered, and then we see the minimal extension at the parlor level, just 4 feet 10 inches of extension. And at the roof, the new stair bulkhead set back from the rear elevation. And what you're seeing here in section is that glazed part of the 4th floor that allows light into the interior stairwell. And then our existing and proposed cross section, kind of looking at that excavation work within context of the neighbors. 336 and 340 were both previously excavated and had their rear yards lowered. So these changes at 338 are in keeping with what was previously approved for the neighbors. Silman has been brought on for structural engineering. As I'm sure you're aware, they're some of the best at what they do. And they're following all, you know, necessary precautions with regard to structural changes at the building.
And does this involve underpinning?
I believe it requires some underpinning. Randy, are you on the call able to confirm that?
That hasn't been fully determined yet. We just have gotten the results from the soil borings actually just today. So the structural engineer hasn't evaluated those yet.
And while we're at this, not to interrupt terribly much more, in the garden area, is there anything adjacent to the garden that is not a neighboring garden? Are there any structures adjacent to the garden of this house?
Yes, so both of the neighbors have rear buildings that were reconstructed. So they do have rear buildings that you know, neighbor this yard.
So that the excavation will extend to either side of them, with again the possibility of the being extended or underpinning. Right.
Yeah, well, both of the back buildings of the neighbors have cellar space that extends below them. And then our garden or our extended cellar space stops 6 feet before the property line. So it doesn't extend all the way to the back property line, as the neighbors both do.
But it will abut the neighboring buildings then at the rear of the amount that's being excavated.
Yes.
Yes, but not we're not going, their buildings go all the way to the rear property line. We're not going all the way to the
So
rear.
I'm talking about the excavation for this building extends far enough back that it is in line with the neighboring rear yard structures.
Yes. I
It
believe-
overlaps, yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, Randy. Yeah.
I'm sorry, keep going. It's just to get this settled as we're at it.
Yeah, and as a note, both of the rear buildings at the neighboring are not of historic construction. So it might overlap, as Randy was saying, but they're not historic structures. Okay, so just taking a look at the materials that are proposed, the materials and finishes are follow, what we see at this building and the neighboring buildings and those of similar age and historic character. We have, as I mentioned, the exact brick that was approved for 340 West 12th, brick and mortar. So that will be used. It's a Stiles and Hart red waterstruck and Workrite gray mortar. So as mentioned, it'll physically knit these buildings back together. New cast stone, sills, lintels, and string course in brownstone to match the primary facade, as well as those details that were approved for 340. The windows, railings, and extension details will have a black finish, and the new fourth floor cladding and rooftop stair bulkhead will be painted in this discrete gray color, also in keeping with typical kind of rooftop addition colors or bulkhead colors. So with that, we hope that with our discussion, you'll agree or find that the changes are, in keeping or sensitive to the building and the row, and that the row will be enhanced by the staff level restoration work proposed as part of the larger project. I tried to go quickly, so of course, we're happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. It seemed very clear.
Okay.
There is, if you could go back to the best representation of the horse walk as it in the current condition.
Okay. I think probably this photo.
Okay, and can you enlarge the current condition? Just enlarge the thing and zoom in on it.
Sure.
Okay, when we walk down the street, what will we see different?
So what we're looking at is 338 right here on the right. Right now you're looking in and seeing kind of the shadow and the darkness of the existing horse walk. When you and you're seeing, some of the kind of pavement right on the inside. The proposal is to have that new partition within this horse walk, but set back 2.5 feet, so as to be removed from the historic gate, which will remain in place, and it'll be finished in a dark color. So,
and rather than seeing essentially a void, then we see a dark wall.
You won't see the dark wall immediately because it's set back from the gate. But the intent with the color again is to kind of allow it to recede into the shadow, so that when you're looking through the gate, it's not all that different from what you're seeing here. And
but what the difference is, rather than a void, there is a wall, however much it's set back, that you see through the gate, if you look carefully.
right, there'll be there'll be some void,
I wanted to be sure about
and then the door. Yes.
Right.
There'll be a black painted door, again, to kind of recall
That's all of my questions.
Okay.
Yeah. Well,
presentation.
I mean, in fact, when you look at this photo, all you see is darkness beyond, and in the proposal, you'll see the same thing. You'll see darkness. It's.
I'm thinking of real life, not the picture. So we can move on
Wow.
to the questions then. Susan.
Okay, I have a quick question. First of all, thank you for such a clear presentation. And secondly, you referenced a mock-up.
Yes. Let's see,
You have photos of that.
let's see. So this was our mock-up, or is our mock-up. It's currently in place. So looking in this top left photo, that's the mock-up of the stair bulkhead. Of course, the railing out in front. And then looking the other way towards the west, shown in this top right and bottom left, are the mechanical units and that the extension of the existing chimney that will need to be extended due to code requirements. So that was it in place. And then from the surrounding streetscape. So from across the street, none of it was visible. Walking down the street, this is from the eastern corner. And so it's kind of a partial zoom because this row house here is a bit taller and because 336 still has that raised parapet, you can't see anything beyond that. And then this was looking from the other way down the street. Again, no visibility even through the trees. And from the other side of the block, we took a look just to make sure. And there are these kind of larger, heavier buildings on the other side of the block that block your view from the rear.
Thank you. Any other questions here? Any other questions from any of our virtual committee members or board members?
I have one subjective question now that I've got my mechanicals out of the way. In the rear facade, could we see the rear facade
Oh,
window?
yes,
With the
yes.
neighbor?
With the neighboring buildings?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's simply that the neighboring building, which has been approved, preserves the really three original window openings, and it seems almost more disturbing with what's there because this one is so traditionally done, keeping the three with masonry between, that I found those two floors a little disturbing. When it looks like that same thing could be accomplished by having full length windows in the three positions, presumably the original positions. I understand it's a style and kind of thing, but
Okay.
like
I'm
it
sorry.
comes so close but doesn't make it.
You're saying that the windows at 338? So,
I can't see the numbers, but
oh, okay.
the building to the left in the right-hand picture, the building to the left preserves the masonry separating the three windows. Whereas in the proposal,
Oh, I see down here.
a weak bit of metal, which gives it a panoramic view rather than three punched window view.
Right, right. It does. I
Or a
think,
comment than a question.
yeah, it is a stylistic choice. Yeah, I think one of the benefits of kind of ganging them together is that, you're still maintaining that same kind of pier of masonry and alignment of the windows between each of the floors so that there's a nice kind of relationship between them. So even though there's an intervention here, that kind of more traditional punched windows still relate to that new infill in at least their, in their alignment.
Yeah, I'd like to point out too that, the windows on the building at the left, 340, the French doors were added. I mean, those were originally just single windows that align with the windows before floors.
It's the width and it's the masonry separation. So I'm
Right. Well, I mean, as Sarah pointed out, it's kind of a trade-off. Instead of that
We
separation,
we understand the.
keeping the
price.
margin. Yep.
Susan, all questions been exhausted?
If there are any members of the public who have any questions or who wish to speak.
I don't see any other questions from
Nor do I.
Zoom side.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you
As
for your
fast
time.
as you went, it was very, very clear. And thank you for.
Good, I'm
moving
glad. Thank you for your
Thank
time.
you for your time.
Thank you.
All right, next we have 130 Bank Street.
Eugene,
Yes.
you'll start working on the.
So, Courtney Bank, if you, or Courtney Alston, if you would allow me to promote you to a panelist.
Okay, the application is to install new steel deck at the first floor level over existing cellar extension, including new pavers, steel structure railings, and stair access to interior stair hallway. Replace one window with a door to the stair and add new lighting at the exterior facade. When you're ready.
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Courtney Wollaston. I'm an architect representing our client at 130 Bank Street. Thanks for listening this evening. Thanks for taking a look at this. Can I present, or are you going to pull up?
No,
You should be able to present. Is there anyone else that you will need will join you today?
Just me this evening.
Okay. So you should be able to present. Let me know if you have any problems.
No, that's fine. Thank you so much. Okay, great. So actually, let me see if I can present my whole screen, take you through a little tour. Would allow me to share the whole screen? No. That's okay. I'll do it one at a time. It's fine. So this building at 130 Bank Street is a building of the Greek Revival style in a row of 3 buildings from 126 to 130 from 1857. Our proposal, sorry, this is a 1940s and a 1980s, very blurry historic photo. Our proposal sets to make no changes to the front facade, but to add a terrace or a deck on top of this rear existing extension that's a cellar and first floor extension. We're adding a structural steel and brick extension to cover the steel terrace with changing the upper window. Can you see me indicating it here? Maybe that window becomes a doorway from the main stair hall and down onto this deck by way of a new stair. I'm going to present our drawings now. Okay. So, let me show you.
Can we get it? Can you somehow get it to the full screen?
Yes, I absolutely will.
It's just so small.
Yeah, it sure is. Okay, so this is our demolition page here. So there's existing HVAC condensers at the top of the building that you cannot see from the street. We thought that we weren't going to see this new roof, sorry, the rear deck from the street, but you can catch a glimpse of it via Washington Street through another gate. So there's a lot of existing electrical conduit, this big steel gate that covers this back entrance into the kitchen at cellar level, which is kind of, we want to remove all of that and add steel to make this deck out here. So This deck will, there's an internal stair here and we could not make the door work from the first floor landing in the stair. So we had to go up a level, which was a little tricky. So we'll come out through the brick facade, the existing window head height. And we worked with a preservationist for a while on the details of this to make sure that there was a certain amount of space between our landing and the top of the lintel of the lower window to be 18 inches. And then to have this new steel stair come down onto the new steel deck with a new coping at the end of this extension. In order to cover the steel deck structure, we do need to brick up a little bit to cover it, and then have new pavers on top of this, new lanterns at the rear, and the wood, this will be a painted white wood window with a true divided light glazing on it to match the existing the fenestration that's there currently. So currently it's a 3/3 pattern. So we'll devise the divided light for the door accordingly. No other changes to the facade. This is by and large a deck extension. The existing facade brick is painted gray. We're not proposing in this iteration to change that, but we'll work with the preservationist if they request us to do anything with that. But it's not part of our proposal. Let's see here. We have structural drawings for this extension, or sorry, I shouldn't call it extension, deck. We have a landmark set of plans and then a Department of Building set of plans, and oops, excuse me. You can see this.
Primarily concerned with what it looks like.
Sorry?
We're primarily concerned with what it looks like in the end.
Yeah, and you'll be able to catch a small glimpse of it from Washington Street from this A point, like I said. So you'll be able to catch it once to be able to see through this gate here. Or sorry, I don't know if you can call that a gate, through this tree, through the gate, and down into the block, into the donut of the block. Yeah. And what it will look like, we have a rendering of, you know, the new stair, the new door, the new stair, the lighting, and the new railing. That concludes my presentation. If there's any questions?
I have,
Susan,
yeah, I have a couple of
go ahead.
questions. One is, I just want to make sure I understand correctly, in that little sliver of public visibility. Am I correct in understanding that what would appear to a bystander on the street from that point of view, different from how it currently appears, is that one would see a bit of that railing and the stairs?
Yes, yeah, and we'll be building a mock-up over the next couple weeks. So we'll let you know when that mock-up is built. I don't know if that changes the outcome from this meeting.
Well, what it is this is a premature application, because the point of this is to be the definitive meeting to make a recommendation, and we can't make a recommendation clearly without the mock-up, which is the purpose of the mock-up. And it is in the regulations that it's for public review and to be seen. So my suggestion is, since that has to be done anyhow before, that you come back, we've heard this part, and that you just come back with the mock-up in place and the photographs that illustrate the visibility, and then we can deal with that discrete part.
Okay.
Easily. at the next meeting if you're ready.
Sure.
However, since we have this well presented now, could we deal with all the rest of the matter? If there are questions about the actual.
Sure. I guess I just want to make sure I'm clear on the scope of work. It is to occupy this deck with the new wood, that hard black wood, I guess, and then the spiral stair. And
Could
the-
we have the picture of the rendering?
So that's really what we're opining on today, is just the deck, the railing, and the stair.
That's right.
Is that correct? Okay.
That's
Well,
right.
I think the spiral stair is a really, really bad idea for so many reasons. And I know it's a little complicated because you have that, what they call a dog leg interior stair, so it's like a half landing.
Yeah.
If that's visible, I think that's gonna be a big problem. Because, first of all, we take them out every chance we get. And let me just tell you, the trend is not to go spiral. They're dangerous and they're not historic. So I would just put that in your thought process.
Could we have a clearer picture of why the lower it's not possible to have the door lower?
It's
Yeah,
an interior stair, Chanel, that has its own landing with a window, which is quite lovely.
We
in the
need to
old
hear from the
farmhouse.
applicant. We need to hear
Yeah,
from the.
the landing is actually below the head of that window. If we drop the sill to get a door onto the landing that exists, it would be lower than this roof deck.
Okay.
You know, now you never have that because those rooms have been occupied by little rooms. But this stair is set far enough back. So when you go up, you actually have a window and like in the old merchant's house and a landing. And then you do the last climb up. So it's very gracious, but it's a problem for what you're trying to do here, sure.
Mhm.
Okay, any other questions in here? No, any other questions from community board members, committee members? Any questions or comments from the public?
I don't see any hands raised, Susan.
Okay, I just want to be sure with the committee that we're settled with everything except visibility, so we don't have to review this again at the next time. And if that's the case, we'll move on to the next application.
Ooh, Downing, last application.
Yeah, I think that's it, Chanel. Obviously, we're all concerned about the visibility.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for your time.
Just be sure to let us know in good time when you're ready to do that, and we can
Okay.
entertain at the next meeting. So
Okay,
you
great.
have the
But
presentation.
before you leave, Courtney, are you currently calendared at LPC?
So, yes, we are.
That
And
date?
I think we'll have to bump it back now. So they had us calendared for the 19th of September.
Okay, it'll have to be at the next, it's after the next, it's after the next to the last Thursday of September, and they normally have a meeting on the following Tuesday.
So
Just check with them. They'll understand if you say you're finishing the presentation at our September meeting, they'll know how to fit you in.
Sure.
And it's
Do you-
not terribly long after our meeting.
Do you know when your September meeting is?
Write to Florence and she'll figure out
Okay,
everything.
fine. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
It has to be after the full board though, then you can go to.
The
land.
next application is 51 Downing Street.
Have a good night, everybody.
To replace entry doors, garage door, fourth floor windows, and replace existing rooftop addition with a new mezzanine addition. When things are ready, Eugene.
Yes, so I have promoted Andrea Steele for 51 Downing. If there's anyone else that will also be presenting, please raise your hand and I will promote you. But Andrea, you can go ahead and share your screen.
You're muted, Andrea.
Andrea, you're muted.
I think she said she's on her phone.
On her phone, does she need to be promoted? Does she?
You're on
She's-
mute. We
Yes,
can't
now
hear
she's
you.
she's unmuted now.
Are you in there?
Hello? Oh, you're still, we're having problems hearing you. It's you know, in Zoom, you're showing as you're not muted, but we're not hearing anything from you though.
I believe she's got a phone number.
Oh, there is a phone number. Let me,
914 number yours?
yes, it's numbers permitted to talk. So that you should be able to speak on that line. No, still nothing yet.
Building on a great street. Really nice.
But the 914 number, you're permitted to speak on that.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now. Yes. We can hear you.
Perfect, perfect. Sorry about that. I have to do the phone for audio, so I'll be quick. I just wanted to say hello to Chair Spence and to the committee. I'm probably going to turn off my camera just to make sure the Zoom doesn't lag, if that's okay. And then I'll try to be quick because I know it's been a long night for everyone.
This is 40 pages. Wow.
I will go quick. I will go quickly. Landmark
Yeah,
kept having us.
Did you hear at the
tables, you know?
beginning about comparisons?
Yes. And I'm going to skip through many of this. A lot of it was
Good,
what
okay,
Landmark
because
had
we're
us
just
add,
taking
but
an
honestly,
ordinate number. Thank you. Okay, you can begin.
okay, absolutely. So Andrea Steele, I'm representing the single family residence, the private owner for the 4th floor and penthouse. Okay, the property is 49-51 Downing. It is on the north side mid-block between Varick and Bedford Street. It is part of, if you can see my cursor down at the bottom right, it is part of the Greenwich Village Historic District Extension that was designated at the very kind of bottom here in 2010. The history of the building, it was constructed in 1896, architect Werner and Windolf. It's a Romanesque revival style building, and it was originally constructed as a horse stable with a single family residence. On the left side is the 1940 historic tax photo, and then we have 2 other photos for reference. The middle, the major alterations happened in 1986 and 1988. Those renovations were, and if you're looking in comparison, they replaced all of the windows on the 3rd and 4th floor. It went from what we can glean from the historic tax photo of a 2/2 to no divided lights. The entries, the original, and let me see, I'm going to try to zoom in here just so that we can get a better glimpse of the historic tax photo. So given that it was a horse stable, the lower level really utilized kind of single wooden doors, the full masonry opening of both the westernmost door, the central door, and then only the eastern door had a pedestrian door, presumably for access to the ground floor stables, and for the upper single-family residence. Zoom back out. So the 1986, 1988 alterations did a few things. One, they removed the iron basket shaped fire escape balcony from the second floor. If you look at the historic tax photo, there were originally 3 on all 3 floors connected by the fire escape ladder. It also replaced both pedestrian doors. The left side, west side, is the entry to the 4th floor, which is my client. And then the east side is a common entry for the other 8 residences. The center is the garage door. So the garage and the pedestrian, the residence entry doors are similar to what you would see now. This is from 2016, but it's similar to it's exactly what's there currently. The other change that you see from the 80s to now is that the 4th floor basket railing was also removed. The front facade, just to define the scope, so we would be looking to remove both non-original entry doors and the non-original garage infill doors, and then to replace the 4th floor windows. This is a comparison, so now we'd be focused on the rooftop addition. So we have Silman, the engineer, who did the full assessment of the building and of the rooftop. So at some point in the 80s, and presumably it was the 86, 88 addition, they added this gable rooftop. The unfortunate thing is that when they did this structure, they put all of the loading directly on top of the roof. They did not bear it on the load-bearing party walls, unfortunately. And so with that, it's caused stresses to the building in terms of deflection and sagging of the roof, which has caused a lot of water damage coming in on the interior. Because what's effectively happened is we've got wood beams and wood columns at the 3rd structural bay here that then have kind of taken all of those stresses. So through the reports of Silman, the recommendation was that any addition that replaced the previous rooftop addition needs to span from party wall to extend the loading to the masonry load-bearing walls. So what's important to note is that the addition is not adding square footage. I know it was mentioned in the previous presentation about spiral staircases. Part of the problem in trying to utilize the square footage that's there now within this gable roof is that there are multiple spiral staircases that make most of the interior fairly non-functional. The other issue is that there are many non-compliances with regards to the existing addition, one of which is that the FDNY doesn't have direct access. So part of the addition will be bringing a continuous fire-rated stair up to the roof. And then there are other additions that were built that were also non-compliant with the previous filings. The bulkhead that you see here is an existing bulkhead, but other than that, everything else that's on the rooftop is non-original. And so, you have a question? Okay. So what we're looking at to the right is going from ground up. What we hope to do is kind of create the, for lack of a better word, kind of monumentality that the garage doors and the stable doors had previously, to kind of bring that same look to both the private entries of the residences and the garage door. The garage door now is just a roll-up metal door that does not have the same materiality or presence that the original garage stable doors had. And keep a consistent language of a solid door for both the private entrances, maintain some level of transom. That light on the interior is important. And from what we can see from some of the adjacent buildings, they have similar proportion transoms. And then on the upper level above, we're not touching any of the existing cornice line. We're not touching any of the existing historic detailing, but we are restructuring the addition such that it spans from, party wall to party wall. I'll go to the next slide, which has the materiality. The materiality, we're using a dark metal panel. We're using louvers to mitigate the solar heat gain within the glass. The wood at the bottom, we have as a solid walnut. I know it was also mentioned in one of the previous presentations about veneer. We're using solid wood for these doors, not a veneer. And then for the entry steps, we're doing a dark gray stone as the single step up to the first floor. On the rear facade, we have not been able to find any historic photographs of the rear facade to understand when changes were made. But again, everything above the roof line is non-original, as well as everything above the fourth floor within the center area. There's an existing railing that was added. Again, we're making the assumption that it was added in 86, 88 to create kind of a bench. And then the windows also appear to be an insertion. We don't know if it happened in the 80s or earlier than that, but you can see the rear terrace currently on the left side. On the right side, you get a glimpse of the addition with the existing flues. This is the rear terrace, and then kind of looking down to the back of the facade, all of which appears to have been changed at some point in time, but we're only talking about changing right now from the fourth floor up. So a comparison of the existing to the new. The addition from the existing roof line up would be similar to what's on the front facade. Move the zoom. We have the same louvers in the back. What you're seeing in terms of the bulkheads is the left bulkhead, which is clad in kind of a darker gray stucco, is the FDIY fire access egress stair coming up to the roof. On the right, this bulkhead has a mechanical bulkhead, but you'll note when you see the roof plan and we talk about the mock-up, it's actually not in line with the other bulkhead. It's actually set back 6 feet and is actually not visible from the rear views when you look at the mock-up. But this is a fire access, fire department ladder that brings you to the upper roof. And then we've got the glazing at the rear facade, curtain wall system with a dark matte finish mullions. That's just showing the same material palette that we spoke about before. Just looking at the proposed entry and kind of the simple wood storefront that we're talking about. It's a solid panel swing door with fixed transom above. And then we do have an existing ventilation system, a mechanical unit. We'd be looking to replace that and treat it as a perforation of the wood so that you wouldn't see the expression of the vent on the exterior. And again, the point here being that we're trying to go back and kind of mimic the kind of larger wood paneling of the original 1940 tax picture when it was the horse stable and the private residence. And then we also have kind of the surrounding area and similar doors around. You know, one thing, kind of to speak about is we were not looking at kind of a raised paneling or articulation of the panels only because we thought maybe the best way to go was to go back to the historic tax photo. But, we'd like to have that conversation just because the original function was not residential at this ground level. So that's why we were choosing to do a more muted wood paneling. The drawings showing again the comparison between the existing front door, none of which was original from the 80s, and then the proposal with the solid wood. We will have the lighting is actually tucked in at the top, and so you're not going to see the visible light fixtures will have a new intercom and doorbell, recessed within the wood paneling, a new mail slot above the perforation for the mechanical vent, but again, the mechanical vent or any of the equipment will not be visible. And it's all within the existing masonry opening. We're not altering any of the existing masonry. The garage door is a 2 bifold door, the full height. Again, and the intent to kind of honor the monolithic scale of the garage doors of the previous tax photo.
And what is the
And
panel
then,
of the doors, please? Is it a wooden
excuse me,
panel?
would you mind? It's a wood, yes, it's a wooden panel above. That was the question, correct?
Yes.
Okay, yes, it is. And one thing to note is that 27 Downing was a Landmarks approved garage door, as was 22 Jane Street. I believe 27 Downing was a staff level approval, and I believe 22 Jane was certificate of appropriateness. We haven't found anywhere that there was a transom, so we didn't show a transom within the garage. It didn't seem in keeping with what was originally there. And the drawings to compare those. So you can see the non-original, they put windows in that area, but it didn't seem to be in keeping with the original architecture. The windows above, we're not looking to change what their appearance, but the function and the performance is not currently working. Currently, they are tilt and turn, which do not perform well, and they also aren't providing the kind of current building codes and energy and thermal performance. So this would be about kind of changing something that from appearance is in kind, but the performance and the functioning would be different. Again, no change to the masonry. You can see kind of a comparison here between the two, such that the existing stone sill does not change. The rooftop addition is comprised of 2 stories from the penthouse. The penthouse is metal clad, full height curtain wall systems, front and rear facades, dark gray metal. The mass of the rooftop addition and the footprint is predominantly the same as what it was, except for the fact that it spans to the party wall again, relieving a lot of the stresses that are being put on the structure all the way through the building. You know, much of this rooftop change is to create, to kind of remediate a lot of the damage that's being caused by not only the structural stresses of this previous addition, the water that seems to be pooling given the deflection, and you know, many of these smaller infill pieces that over time have kind of undermined the integrity and were also built somehow without any proper reviews or compliances. What you see on the upper left photo, that's the original bulkhead. I think there have been some kind of additions and alterations over time, but the general mass and location is what was seen in the original historic tax photo. The lower level were just nearby additions, but the important to note is that the addition 42 Downing directly across the street was done prior to the designation. In terms of, again, being within the Greenwich Village Historic District, we're just going to look at some of the height changes and the rooftop additions that are in the immediate area of that additional extension. So on what we see here is we see, let's just see number 1, 42 Bedford, right? But this, I'll flip through these quickly because I know we were asked to, but these were just illustrating different areas in which the buildings went from, you know, oftentimes 2 or 3 stories to 6+ within that same district extension. Here are the additions, most of which are 1, some of them 2 stories. again, within that same Greenwich Village Historic Extension. These are all specific to horse stables, either within the area or within the neighborhood. And you can see most of them have maintained the panelization of that door. Hard for me to know, 27 Downing here, whether the door was open at the time. Presumably it was, and not stepped back. But you know, some of the doors still function as garage doors where they raise. Some of them function as either bifold or double swing doors. More examples. The plans I'll flip through. We're not making any changes, you know, to the interior structure of the building. This is the 4th floor. So ultimately what you're seeing here is this is the current cornice line. Again, no changes to the cornice line. The addition sets back. And so again, the footprint is similar to the addition of the footprint that is currently there. I'm going to jump to the section just because the section I think is most illustrative. This is the existing. And so if you look at the sight lines, which you'll also see in the mock-ups, either from the sidewalk in front of the building or as far back across Downing, what you'll notice, and consistent with the mock-up and the existing photos, is that the only thing visible above the cornice line is that bulkhead that currently exists. So ultimately we are keeping the entire 4th floor and the roof level intact as it is, removing the front bulkhead, and also maintaining in general the massing of the addition as it is. And so just for comparison, I'm going to flip to the proposed.
How high is the addition from the roof line?
From the cornice line? From so from the existing cornice line to the roof is, let's see, that would be 22 feet.
22. Okay, thank you.
And so the work again being done here is that we're maintaining all of the masonry of the front facade and the cornice line. That existing bulkhead gets removed. We build the addition predominantly where the existing footprint is. And then what does get higher than the existing roof line, and you'll see it in the mock-up, is the stair and the mechanical bulkheads. These were these don't show you anything more than the scaffold, but it took a lot of effort to kind of define where the scaffold is. And what you'll see in the mock-ups is the scaffolds identify the 4 corners of the addition. And then what we worked with landmarks carefully to identify what markers needed to be put in place. And so when you see the flags, and we've labeled all of them, the flags will show the datum of the lower roof, the datum of the upper roof, the uppermost railing height, the bulkhead height, and then there's one flag that's a different color, which is the extension of the neighbor's flue. And this is just showing a section that identifies all the same markers and the scaffold locations, the mock-up. And one important thing, the mock-up is still in place, and I know Florence and I spoke about it at length. We didn't know, and this can be something we talk about at the end, if you wanted to come and see the mock-up prior to the next meeting, but it is still in place. It would probably just have to prop up the flags and all, just given all the rain and such that we've had. So here are the views. What's important to note is that all along Downing, the addition is not visible. What is visible is, again, the neighbor's flue. You'll see a very small tip of it from across Downing Street, and we'll look at those photos, and then we'll walk you through all the rear yard, the rear facade glimpses, which is the only place that you can see the addition. In the first view, and for reference, the first view is from the east at the corner of Bedford and Downing.
Can you enlarge
Oh,
You enlarge it,
absolutely.
you can see the
Absolutely.
pictures better.
How
There,
about
that's much better. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Okay. Let me, there we go. Okay. So looking from Bedford and Downing, this is the existing condition. So the only thing, like I said before, is you see that roof bulkhead at the top. Once we get rid of that roof bulkhead, you don't see any of the additions. So none of the mock-up was visible. We expected that given the sight lines that we'd studied. From the opposite side of Downing, looking east, again, there's the existing. Let me just try to get down. It's not letting me. Sorry. All right, there we go. Sorry about that. Looking, you see again the bulkhead. Once the bulkhead is removed, you don't see anything above the cornice line. So now we're talking about, this is view 3. We're across Carmine, basically at the near corner of 7th Avenue. I'll zoom in again. This is the existing roof line. You see the gable here. The roof of the addition being proposed. You see it here. And for clarity's sake, when you are at the mock-up, it's very hard to see the actual flags. So we zoomed in and then we marked the flags. So what you see is you see top of the bulkheads, top of the upper roof, top of the lower roof, which is consistent with how the mock-up and the rendering is drawn relative to the adjacent facade.
Could you enlarge the zoom in, please?
Sure.
Well, to each of them, that's good.
Oh, each of them? Okay.
Just to visit each of those pictures zoomed. Good.
Absolutely,
That's good.
absolutely. So this is, you're
Okay,
really
you don't
testing
need
my
to review them
technical
again,
knowledge
just so we can see.
here. Okay, yep.
Excellent.
There we go. And then the markup of the markup. And then if we go to view 4, view 4 places us across 7th Avenue, still at the rear facade, looking over Carmine Street, such that now what we're looking at is we're looking at the northwest corner. And I'll zoom in. So there you can see the existing, the prior rooftop addition. There you see the proposed. So what you're seeing is the northeast corner. So there is the FDNY egress bulkhead. Here you're seeing the railing with the upper roof, the facade, and the 4th floor. And then the mock-ups you see there, from afar, you see that pole. You can't really read the flags, which is why we zoomed in, so you can see a markup of where each of the flags are, designating each of those datums. All right. And now we are looking at view 5. View 5 is right behind the building, Carmine Street, far side, looking across. This is the existing condition. This is the proposed rooftop addition. And the mock-ups. And so again, you see the top of the bulkhead, top of the upper roof. Now we have view 6. View 6 is from the far corner of Bedford and Carmine. And there's very little visible here. What you're effectively seeing is you're going to see just the bulkhead of the, what would that be? That is the northwest corner. Just zoom in a little more. Okay, so here's the existing view. So what you see here is you see the uppermost railing, and then that is actually the FDNY ladder that's looping over to access the roof. The actual mock-up, and so essentially your top of bulkhead, top of upper roof. Here, we're looking at view 8. View 8 is across Varick Street, looking obliquely to the rear facade. So you see what we're looking at, we're looking at between these two buildings right here. Existing view. Proposed rooftop addition. You see past these balconies, what you see is you see the western party wall here. And then what you see here is, and this one was hard to mark because all it is effectively showing the side of the scaffold. We did not have flags here because the flags were obviously demarcating all of the datums on the facade. But effectively, you see the scaffold there, which marks the same mass as the party wall shown in the rendering. View 7 is not visible, but we marked it anyway, just as an alternate view. It's Downing Street, southwest corner. Landmarks wanted us to go as far as we could back. It's obviously for the photo, it's not visible because the tree's there, but it's also not visible because you can't see the addition since it's set so far back from the historic facade. View 9 is similarly on the rear facade, further down, further north on 7th Avenue. Again, this was an additional view asked of landmarks, but not visible from this view. View 10 is just the only view that we have where anything's visible on Downing, and you can see here, this is going to be top of the neighbor's flue. I'll zoom in because it's very hard to see. But as landmarks walked with us, and as they said, you know, minimally visible. So that is the post that's marking the flue. You can see there's the scaffold right here, and then we marked the flag. So that flag right there, don't look at the post because the post was just the length of post that they had to do this. The top of the flue would actually be here where the flag was demarcated. And at the very end, just a comparison of the front and back facades, again, where we're not touching any of the existing historic detailing or masonry, and trying to bring those entrances back to more in keeping with what the historic tax photo showed of the original stables, you know, which I think is clear to everyone since we're lucky enough to have the ornamentation of the horse's head still intact. Try to be very quick, mindful of the time, but I'd love to field some questions or thoughts.
One before the committee have their questions. How high above the roof of the addition is the new bulkhead?
How high above? So from the roof, got it. The bulkhead is 10 feet above the roof.
Okay, Susan.
It's providing that, yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna be rude and start with myself. I'm gonna ask if you can please show us what is clearly the problem view, which is viewpoint 4. Yeah, I mean, it's very distressing to see how kind of maximally visible the penthouse addition is from this vantage point. It's very difficult to consider that minimally visible. And did anybody downtown have anything to say about that? Or have they not seen this part at all yet?
This is also louvered.
Anyone,
What we're looking at, that's gonna be louvered.
well, yeah, I mean, I don't want it to sound like it's mechanical louvers. These are like very fine level window louvers. You know, would be something that is meant to be decorative and highly finished. You know, so I don't want, you know, these are solar louvers, not mechanical. But I recognize that obviously there's greater visibility than what was previously shown. But ultimately what we're trying to do is we're trying to square off what was previously this sloped rooftop condition. The rooftop is at the same point, you know, in its highest form as what we're proposing. And the other item to note is, and maybe this is a conversation to be had about the articulation, is that the rooftop, this line of the rooftop is actually lower than what the existing high point is. What we're seeing here is we're actually seeing the louvers as the railing, and again, that stair bulkhead.
Right, thank you for clarifying that. It's still unfortunately very visible. Eugene has his hand. Eugene.
Hi, thank you. Yes, I had a follow-up question on that. So staying on this photo, of this mock-up, what is, you said it's a solar louver. What, could you explain more of what that is, and also explain, I guess, what the material is? Is it going to be reflective? Is it, you know, how will that material look from the street?
Absolutely. Right. We're not looking to make it reflective. We were trying to make it with kind of matte materials, because what we didn't want was this gleaming glass box. That's not the desire. I'm sorry, I'm only flipping through here just to get back to the material palette page. Oh, there we go. So the idea, and we're working on the profiles of these, but that they would be these refined solar louvers. They would be kind of a matte, darker, either charcoal or you know, darker silver. We want to kind of put the facade in shade so that it isn't reflective, and any of the glazing that isn't protected or screened by the louvers is actually not what is visible. The bulkheads we were looking to do similarly in kind of a painted, you know, more in kind of one of the landmarks grays, gray palette, or a stucco. Again, we're not looking to pop out from a color or reflectivity standpoint at all, which is also why we had the louvers running in front of the glass railing so that there wasn't the visible glass from the facade.
Are the louvers fixed or movable?
They are fixed.
But from the louvers fixed or movable. Yeah.
Sorry, did you say they were fixed?
I'm sorry, you're echoing.
Oh, sorry, did you say the louvers are fixed?
The louvers are fixed. Yeah, you can't remove them. I mean, they again, depending on access to glass and maintenance and such, you might be able to rotate them or you might be able to shift them, but they're not meant to be something that will be put on and then taken off by anyone, the owner. I mean, they're
Adjustable.
Yeah, so that's really operable louvers. It's not like a big Venetian blind.
They're not adjusted according to the sun.
Well, we're looking at that, but like unlike Venetian blinds, where Venetian blinds, obviously you can retract them, you know, up. These are not going to move up and expose more glass.
But would they rotate? Would more of the glass be visible at different times of day?
No, they're, I mean, at this point, we weren't assuming that there was any kind of mechanized. What we were doing is we were going to set them at an optimum point to maximize the solar shading, but we weren't looking at this point to do mechanized unless there was a thought that that was more appealing to the committee. But we weren't proposing a mechanized system.
So just sorry, keep hammering on this, but I just want to make sure we all understand it correctly. So fixed position, and they are not. If the owner should decide, oh, I'd like to actually it's winter, I'd like to have a little more sunlight in here. The capability does not exist to change the position of the louvers, thereby exposing more of the glazed surface to passersby?
That we have never talked about movable louvers. I think the hope would be that, those mechanized exterior louvers, in other parts of the country work really, really well. In New York City with snow and, let's call it particulates in the air, they tend to not function so well. Moving parts on buildings tend to not function well. So up to this point, we've never discussed a mechanized system.
So just to be clear about this, they neither go up and down, nor do they open and close or change their tilt. They're like a,
correct,
if you will, a miniature awning stacked on one top of the other. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
That's settled.
All right, I think we got it. I think you did. Valerie Dolorosa.
Thank you. Hi, Andrea. First of all, this is one of the most informative, present and thorough presentations, graphically and just with all the outline. I just really have to commend you on that. Mike, I have two questions. One is, it makes it very easy to follow along. One of my questions is on slide 36. I think it's slide 36, view 6. What is that pole that is sticking? I know that's the restaurant shed or whatever, but what is that pole that is bisecting diagonally the photo? Is that something that's attached to?
This is attached to, this is one of those temporary restaurants.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's actually bringing the electricity into the restaurant.
Okay, so it's nothing attached to the building. That was one of my questions. Okay.
Oh, no. It's attached to this pop-up restaurant.
Okay, thanks.
I can zoom in so you can see it better. See, there's a, it's actually bringing.
I sent over something related to the building. Okay. And then on page 34, just to be clear, it's where you've got you show the proposed and the on slide 34.
Yes.
Just easy for me to ask the question.
It might not be that it's not this one that you're looking for.
No, sorry.
Oh, okay.
So in the bottom left photo, the proposed, what is the height of that white outline, like from the parapet to the bulkhead? That's the 22 feet?
Let me just make sure I understand your question. So we have, I wonder if I'm right with this, I don't know. So we have this roof line here, which is the uppermost roof, and then we've got the stair bulkhead, which is bringing the FD&Y access. So from this, and I believe Chair Spence, when he asked for the clarification, this is the 75, this is the 85, so this is 10 feet. So if you're talking about the difference between the lower roof to the uppermost bulkhead, I believe that's the 22. So this is the lower to the upper. But I can go back to the section just to, don't want to say anything incorrect.
And so between what was existing and what's proposed, what's the, it's plus 22 or it's plus an extra 10? Like what's like if I were to subtract what it was before, what is that number?
Right. Well, I mean, let's do a few comparisons, right? So there's no change to the main roof. That's the same in both scenarios. And the only change at the next level is we're removing that front bulkhead that is visible from Downing. And then if we look at the addition, this is the ridge addition, which is at 73, 8.5. The main roof line of the addition is 75, so we're about 1.5 feet above that. And then, so we've got the addition roof about 1.5 feet above the existing addition. And then the only thing that goes above that are the stair and mechanical bulkheads that add the 10 feet on either side. And what we were trying to look at was what was the code minimum that FDNY would allow us for those stair bulkheads. We think we've drawn code minimum. I mean, maybe we could bring that down a few inches, but it won't reduce much more just because they need to have the clear head heights for coming out from that roof through the stair bulkhead.
Thank you for explaining that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Brian or Anita or Brendan, do you have any questions? Nope. Okay. Any other committee members or board members have any questions? Anybody from the public? Eugene, I don't see anybody, do you?
I do not see any hands raised. No, I don't see any.
Okay. That appears to be it, Chanel.
Okay, thank you. Are you able to stay on for the business session? We could do this first. It just seems so complex that questions may arise.
Okay. Yes, is the business session now?
Yes. And
okay.
And thank you for such a.
I'll say.
When I first read it, it absolutely seemed daunting. And it came clear.
Greene Street.
We did not find anyone for the first application, right?
Correct. But you know, we had the presenter from Greene Street here the whole time, making himself available. Also, so maybe
that one's pretty fast.
So why don't we do, maybe we should do Greene Street first and then jump.
Okay. Okay. I think Greene Street's not terribly complex.
Correct.
Okay. If we could, do you all need a break or we go on? Can we get back to the room, please? Does anyone need a break?
No.
Okay. Okay. Greene Street. I'll go in order.
So breaks were in person.
Who from the committee is on? Is Eugene the only person remote?
Yes, great members as well.
Okay. We know that we did. Well, let's take them at facade by facade. The window and the entry door.
Picture now.
If you just say, if you have objection to anything, just say it so we can keep in order, because there are a lot of pieces.
So we're doing green, correct? Thank you.
Yes. The only thing that seemed to have any discussion was the vitrine. Is that correct?
Yes.
My view is that disturbing the symmetry is very, very bad. And what does it in particular is having the raised vitrine. That's what I gathered from all the discussion.
Well, it's a very, very door vocabulary, shall we say, columns and everything. But I don't know. It's a display window with fancy columns. Everything else is fine though, right? I don't have any problem with the sort of drop fascia inside, and it's really just that vitrine is an odd oddity.
There's no objection to anything except the vitrine, is that it? Anita, I'm hearing you badly still again for some reason.
Oh, sorry about that. I agree, yes.
Um,
Well, and I would like to just comment that, comment on your comment, Chanel, about balance and symmetry. As I look at it, it is very close to maintaining that symmetry that was there originally. It's just not a divided light in there. It's a single light.
I don't have the presentation before, but is there not some raised bulkhead below the window?
Very small.
Oh, maybe it looked bigger.
It's pretty small, yeah.
Very small, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, is the wisdom that there's no objection to the application then?
Yeah, I don't really have one now.
Okay, we'll approve. No one objects to approving, correct? Okay. Then if we could move on to one that's a bit more complex.
I should try. Yeah, you're done.
Actually, my notes are not complex. Dealing first with the ground floor. There's the question of the entry doors and some detailing around them, and the garage door with the area above.
We're now downing.
Downing.
Okay.
You know,
Would you
the
like me to bring the images back up?
We'll have only the images of something we want to discuss. We'll call you when we need you. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, is the ground floor settled as is?
Yeah, I
Okay.
just felt like there was very little information. I mean, I don't have an objection per se, but you know, wood doors, usually we get a little more information. Whether it has moldings, is there handles, is it?
No, she
Well-
said they were absolutely plain to be in keeping with the spirit of the stable. She mentioned that very specifically in showing examples of doors that had detailing and that these not.
I'm dropping off. It's getting late. I think it looks good. It's fine. It's not objectionable.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know, but
I would just,
Could we deal with the upper floor, everything except the visibility?
I think Brian had something that he wanted to say on the subject of ground floor doors.
yes, exactly.
Go ahead,
So
Brian.
I just for the architect's benefit, it seems that on the sheet 004, the indication of the swing is opposite of the other drawings that come up later. So that want to correct that on the drawings, but I do like the simplicity of the doors, including the garage doors. I think that has a much more in character appearance than the existing ones. So
What's there now is a horror.
yeah, exactly.
Well, I just wanted to
Okay,
say thank you for
are we
catching
finished
that.
with the
That was a good
facade?
eye.
Are we finished with the facade? Lower floor.
Ground floor, yeah, it's fine.
Okay. The upper floor. Can we deal with first the look of it itself? We're coming to the visibility, but that's last.
Well, it's overwhelming, this tiny little building. I mean, I think just visually, it's very strong, very modern, and overwhelming to the little building. That's my impression of it.
Well, I
Okay,
certainly-
it overwhelmed because it's visible then, right?
So,
I'm not talking about the design of it.
well, the design
Just
is
that I have the louvers, the glass, the
the whole
the gray
impression.
metal, all of that's
Fortunately, not visible from
leaving
this.
the size apart from it, the materials and the design of it.
Everything, it all adds
Okay.
up.
Okay. Is there anything to say about the size of it unrelated to the visibility of it?
I don't know how you separate them.
Okay. Okay, then that's the right answer.
It was a test, Susan.
Okay. The visibility clearly exists, and it exists in a big way. I don't know what to say about it otherwise.
Well, we are a historic preservation group. So
Right.
I think
Yeah,
it would be
exactly.
nice to know how, if someone loves it, how do you make it, what does it relate to? And I don't know, it just looks very alien.
I think what we're not getting is a picture of the design and the visibility together, because there's no rendering of the visibility. There could be things that we'd see that were better than other things that we see. What we're seeing is something that doesn't relate at all to the building or the neighborhood that is highly visible.
Correct.
In that sense, the material becomes a big factor. So I'm just trying to think of it as if it were masonry.
Or something less flashy.
Yeah. Mechanical looking.
It's a situation that I'm not sure how we can, as we often do, recommend modifications of some sort that would make it acceptable. And if it's the basic design of the of that which is highly visible, I don't know where we have any.
Well, I think a general comment would be use materials, colors, and shapes and forms and openings that are relatable to a historic district and not something else.
Meaning a design of it.
Well, I mean, I think even the part that is visible, I mean, those louvers are kind of alien to the neighborhood. Doesn't seem to be anything like that downtown.
Is what people are saying that if it were the same bulk, if that's the right word, meaning equally visible in every way, that if it were in more sympathetic materials, it would be acceptable.
More acceptable. It should blend. You know, right now it's not rendered, but looking at the design, we can imagine it. And it's something that's going to look either like a huge cooling system on a roof that fell down to ground level, because those would be way up
Look
high.
at the microphone, not at me. That'll help.
The microphone?
Anita, look just look toward the microphone when you talk.
Okay, I don't think that'll help. My voice traveled. I think, yes, it's just because it's not relatable in a historic district. Simple.
My comment would be less reference to like a curtain wall and more brick. And I think the brick could be the red brick or the brick that's lighter tone on the building to the west.
Are we ready for a conclusion?
I just have to bring up, you know, the unfortunate reality that our way of looking at this, in keeping with the landmarks law, is that the level of that minimum visibility of a rooftop addition is our guideline. And in most of the vantage points, I would say this meets the standard of minimal visibility, but from that fourth vantage point, it really doesn't. So I think we have to look at it from two different points of view, one being simply a massing point of view. So from a massing point of view, would we accept that amount of visibility from that vantage, that unavoidable amount of visibility from vantage point number 4? So that's one question. And then the second question becomes, if we say, yes, we would, and we understand that it's a replacement of something there, and we understand the reasoning for it and all of that, then, you know, I think if we accept the massing, then it's clear that we have to opine very seriously about what the look of it is, because it is visible. So I think first we have to answer the question, do we accept that kind of massing at all, given how visible it is from vantage point 4? So let's just get that off the table for starters. How do people feel about that?
It's tricky.
I don't know that it honestly, it's not that terrible if you think of it in terms of what every other size building is. So from the visibility, it's not even a 4-story building. So if it looked like the back of a 4-story building, you wouldn't think twice about it.
That's a great point. That's a great point. So our problem isn't so much the massing per se as what it looks like.
Material.
All right.
I want to just ask a general question. So let's say it was on the same vertical plane. as
Brandon,
the-
could you speak up just a little bit?
So this is
Thank
a
you.
question. Let's just say it was on the same vertical plane as the rear facade, or I don't know if we're calling it rear facade, as the facade. How would we feel about that?
Going straight up?
If it just went straight up and didn't have a setback, with masonry.
Well, they're not
We just-
suggesting something
They
that
they could,
has a wheelhouse here.
Yeah, I mean, this is more of a,
Academic question,
Yeah.
because that's not what, that there's nothing like that there.
or a skylight slanted.
okay, it's a penthouse of some sort. And what we're asking that it be a penthouse that is in the style of the building in the district,
Right.
not.
Well, I think we can.
It would very well be acceptable if it didn't show, but showing is what it does.
Yeah, I mean, clearly it doesn't look like anything else in the neighborhood. I mean, that's a pretty easy comment.
Okay, it's clear what we're asking for style wise, or design wise, or feeling wise. Is the size acceptable?
I think it's huge. I mean, I actually think it's, I'm going back to, slide number 8 in the presentation. And I mean, it's like the penthouse itself is a huge percentage of the size of the building.
It is, it's almost the same size, if you will.
Almost exact, almost doubling the building in certain.
And in looking at the comparison, as peculiar as that peak looked in isolation, it's made to lie against the building next door and cascade down, so that it sort of reduces its apparent size because it's lying against the tall building.
You mean the previous, what's current?
Yeah, the current thing, in comparing the two.
Right, because the massing's not, so.
So then we have to say something. We want it reduced and to and the style change. Is that what we're saying?
Much quieter.
I'm trying to sum up, not to invent.
Well, this reminds me of the project on, Cornelia Street. It was the same little tiny stable, and they built this humongous, group of Italian architects. And, that was pretty massive too. It just was all roof. And that was, yeah. And I didn't like that one either for a historic district, so.
Well, it seems like the only way to say it is that we recommend against the rooftop addition, and that an acceptable one would be smaller and in the style of the building. Is that?
Yeah.
We're not going to give dimensions, of course, but
I think that works.
Yeah, there's not a single, reference. There's nothing similar anywhere in the village that has that type of material.
right, there's just, it's not even trying to be in sympathy with the building, and then
Right,
it's
right.
so it's not failing in that. Okay, I think this is settled. Thank you to the applicant for staying. We had better memories than I thought we might have had.
Just to respond to the applicant.
We'll get the same thing with Bond Street. It just seems to be a faded application. And we did make a diligent offering, and nothing came through on the chat, so what can we do? Greene.
Yeah,
92 Horatio. Was that?
Okay,
There's something in the chat.
I actually have a quick question, just going back to Greenwich. I know we just finished it. Is that building itself landmarked? It's not, right?
Stable on Downing Street?
It's not, or is it? I thought it's like, it's listed in the National Register of Historic Places, but is it a landmark building itself?
no, it's not an individual.
I don't think so, no. Not with those doors that they have now.
Let's move
It's a
on.
very
please.
cool building, though, very, very nice.
We're on 92 Horatio Street, also not an individual landmark.
Thank you.
Oh, Valerie wants to speak. Hold on.
Okay, speak.
Valerie? Is it muted? Oh, I just wanted to acknowledge there's something in the chat about one bond, even though it didn't appear that it is actually, that Carter put in the chat, that 1 to 5 bond is actually an individual landmark building, but that's not designated on the application or the presentation.
Well, they didn't even come.
No, I'm just.
So thanks, Carter, for the future. We'll certainly.
Okay, let's deal with it when we get it.
One bond is the Brooks Brothers building.
So just changing anything.
Yeah, just to point it out for the committee that it wasn't on anywhere there.
Yeah.
Thanks, Carter.
Well, I'll talk about 92 if you want me to.
I do.
Yes, please.
Let's deal with the,
Mhm.
well, actually, I don't see that there's a lot of difference in the facades. So let's deal with the general. What's being done.
That I have to say, I did like sort of the proportions of the openings. I even like the slant. I don't know, some people might not like that, but I like that. But the things I had a big problem with was the tooling of the brownstone, the color of the brownstone, and then the door, sort of that, the door transom. But I really objected to the tooling became not historic in any way. It became just sort of like a modern stucco. So
I'm sorry, the what is not historic?
the way it was used, the way.
Oh, right. Yep.
Tooling, there's no blocks, it's almost like it's a magic granite or something.
Yeah, scoring, you mentioned the word scoring.
scoring,
Mid-means tooling.
tooling,
Right.
exactly, and the
This
color,
shows how good my notes are.
and the color is very odd, very, I mean, it's
Right.
like concrete.
Great.
So we'd like it treated in a historic manner with a historic color.
And at least nod towards the historic tooling of it. It doesn't have to be exact. It doesn't have to be pretending to be original, but it certainly isn't here. This is not the
Want
right.
to leave the plainness with tooling,
Say what?
which is why they were tooled to begin with.
Well, it's a
And the other thing was
it'll be
the
nice.
doors were too plain. Is that correct?
Tooling in the plaster work.
No, I have to chop it all to key it in.
I think the point is that, you know, brownstone is the reference here, which it clearly is, then it needs to be more brownstone-like, both in its color and in its detailing.
So does that mean the inset of the windows as well? Design?
Yeah, I didn't mind that because I liked the fact that it made it a little more grander and not these little tiny openings. So I kind of like that part. But I didn't like just how flat and modern and also it's trying to imitate other materials that in fact it isn't either, like hammered granite and smooth granite. It's not granite.
And in a subtle way, they here and there they made reference to its original use of the ground floor, which is a big difference from its current use.
Well, that's cool. I mean, I think they did a nice job from that point of view. Because you have to fill it up with something, otherwise it just looks like little openings, looks sad. This, you know, it's not bad from that point of view. Maybe it should have a base, maybe it should have, you know, bring out a few more of the obvious things that we have. But I think it's just the treatment of it. And I think it'll wear poorly, by the way. I mean, this is the kind of thing that looks good for a week. And then something happens and there's, you know, it's too, that's why they score it. So the cracks will occur at the scoring and not anywhere else.
Okay, we got it. Can we move on?
I'm done.
338 West 12th Street.
That's a check.
Two things in the front that were before us were the horse walk and the lowering of the areaway. The areaway, does anyone have anything to say about? No. The horse walk. My objections all have to do with things that are not our department, so
Understand that. I think though, I think it's fine. I mean, would we love to see a horse walk going back to a structure in the back that no longer is there? You know, sure, but I think that's, you know, a little unreasonable.
They really kept it going now. They didn't obliterate it.
Right, I think the fact that they kept the vocabulary of the horse walk in its
is there such a thing as approving with regret?
Well, I think we can just approve that unless anybody else has an.
Okay.
As a worker that needs it.
Another horse walk gone. The
Those walkways are so narrow. Those must have skinny.
the rear facade.
And low too.
I thought it looked pretty nice. And it looked like the one next door, so I mean, you know, that's a family right there.
Yeah.
I said my piece, but I think all in all, we're glad the way it turned out.
My big concern on this proposal is the rear yard excavation when we don't really, when they haven't, I think we have to make a comment about the rear yard excavation because the engineering report was not available at the point of this presentation. And regardless of the fact that, you know, the two rear buildings on the adjacent structures are not for the applicant historic, we don't really know what they are. And
It's exactly what we had before.
whether they're historic or not, we don't want things undermined.
Right. I think it's almost the same text in the resolution as the one we had last month.
Yeah, I think so.
Similar, yeah.
And these people did seem to be totally aware of such a thing. I mean, last month was just out of, like it didn't exist, but the gentleman who spoke a little bit, certainly is, understands about it. The extension we did seem to mind. The mock-up was not visible. I don't have any other objection things to it.
There's a spiral stair?
I can't hear you at all now, Anita.
Still on 12th.
No objection.
No objection.
Done.
Is there something else to say? I'm lost.
No.
Yeah, excavation.
We have all that.
We've done that.
We have text for that from last month.
Well, they're gonna have strong language.
Oh,
Similar to
can we
last.
put archaeology in there too? I don't know.
Everybody's lost. Can we move on?
Yes.
Okay. What's next? Bank Street.
Nick say, I didn't like that at all. I've been, especially if it's visible, but we're gonna have to come back, is that right?
Well,
Yeah, it seemed very
here's
premature.
where we are. We have heard everything. And we agree that we know everything except having seen the visibility
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes.
and of a mock-up to show this thing. We also know that we object to the staircase. I think what we do is we don't issue any opinion
Yeah.
and we'll do it all the next, but we know that the staircase is a big problem.
Correct. But I mean, we can't, without a proper mock-up, we can't opine.
No, and I did say it, so I think it's not a good direction to go in, but.
And we could about the design of the spiral, but we can't about how much it shows and
Exactly.
So do we just say they need to come back in the resolution? Is that?
yeah, but we just say that we're issuing no opinion and that they've agreed to come back with proper mock. And we're back to Downing Street miraculously.
What street?
We're done with it.
We're done.
We're done with that.
I don't know anything. Oh, except I'd like for us to take a moment. I'm going to say so at the faux board meeting. Joan Davidson died this week, who was terribly important for preservation. It's worth reading the Times obituary if you haven't seen it. And what's the interesting is her father had started the foundation, and they do very specific targeted medium-sized projects. And one was getting Westbeth. They funded the whole initial happening of Westbeth.
It's not on here.
That was her first thing when she took over the
Remind him. Did you read it?
that done.
I
We've
worked-
squeezed in not terrible without.
Right back, we can talk about it. All right, thanks for mentioning that, Chanel. I guess we need to move on to our letter now, the letter that you and Susan Kent will be sending
I didn't
to.
understand a single word, Susan, sorry.
Oh, sorry. I think we need to move on to our the National Park Service letter that will be coming from you and
Oh,
Susan.
yes, oh, sorry, yes. I do beg your pardon because it's not an agenda item. And we'll now have new business from Susan. And I've asked Susan to have this discussion.
Right, well, Chanel circulated the letter among the committee members. The letter is going to be coming from the chair of the community board and the chair of this committee to the National Park Service. I think everybody is familiar with it. Chanel had asked that any committee member who had any comment, send it along to me, and you probably likely all CC'd on that. Bo had a comment regarding wanting the inclusion of NoHo. I'm happy to respond to Bo in an email and explain why NoHo is not part of this letter due to the fact that the National Park Service does not have any standing, that their standing is purely over the Soho cast iron district by virtue of them having designated it as a National Historic Landmark, and that's where their interest is. So that was one thing. And the only other thing that was Brendan explored the attachments and sent along the city's final environmental impact statement, noting a particularly strong sentence in that statement. Perhaps you can remember that sentence, Brendan. If not, I'll find it. It's a very strong sentence, and I don't think it would hurt one bit to add that attachment, the final environmental impact statement, and with a citation of, section B, first sentence, to just zero in right on one very strong sentence there. So I would be all in favor of adding that. Other than that, if any other committee member has anything to say about the letter, this is a good time to do so.
I'll just say to the NoHo question, whatever we learn can be applied wherever it's appropriate.
Also, if they take this project on, they will be looking at all the surrounding streets, blocks. So NoHo certainly would be considered.
And districts, we have a lot of districts affected by this, a lot.
Yeah, and they might take that into consideration too, because to a lesser extent, they are involved with the National Register. Not to the same importance as a national landmark, but it'll be addressed. NoHo will be addressed.
That's in return, in terms of response to Bo, but it's not, nobody is suggesting that we amend our letter to include.
No, we're trying to get their attention. All of these nuances and going in depth, all of that can come later, but first, we gotta get their attention, and we can do it by appealing to them how brilliant they were that they designated this district. And now we're saying, oh my God, what you thought was so great is in danger. And then we can get into all the other stuff. I'd like to talk just a second about Brendan. I don't know what the sentence is.
I've got it here. I've got it right here. The sentence is the first sentence in the principal conclusions, and that sentence reads as follows. The proposed action would result in significant adverse impacts to historic and cultural resources, including archaeological and architectural resources.
Well, my feeling, it's more a feeling about it, is I like that sentence, but I don't like attaching anything like report, because you go down the rabbit hole, you don't know what you're reading, and this is pro or against, or is it supporting it or not? There's too much. And I just worry that I think we should only attach things that support us 1000% and leave on that note.
Yeah, I think that's a point well taken. But I also think this is such a great sentence, and maybe rather than attach that,
I like that.
just add a sentence.
Modify the sentence.
Even in their own words, you know, and in the words of the final environmental impact study, and include that sentence, and that's very strong, and then there's no question of muddying the waters with other things.
I like that.
You can
That's very
really,
sensible, yeah.
yeah, I like that so much. That's great, Susan.
Sounds good. Great letter, guys. So concise. I'm jealous. Not.
You though, that was.
Is there anything else to discuss on this?
On the letter?
Yeah.
You vote on it?
Anything from the public?
We don't need to vote on it. It's not coming.
need to vote.
It's coming from
It's
Susan.
not a reso.
It's not a reso. It's not
It'll
a
be
reso.
discussed at executive, right?
What time?
Will we discuss that
That it does
executive?
not need to
right?
be voted.
Yeah, we discussed. Well, if anybody hates it, speak up. Now's the time.
Nobody's disagreeing. We can have agreement
That's good
about it.
enough for me. That's
Well,
fine.
Susan's here.
There's
So-
Susan. Do you want to comment, Susan?
I'm very pleased with the letter. I'm very proud to be able to sign that letter. I think it reflects, a lot of thought, and it's really the best that we can do based on where we are right now. I would like to see just where that last sentence, a final version that includes that sentence so that I know exactly where that's going. But otherwise, I really don't have, you got my comments early on, so I don't really have anything to add to it. It's certainly something that I can announce that, at exec, that a letter is being sent out. Make it available to, anyone who's interested. It's now a public document once it goes out, so.
And
Hey,
Susan still calls it to be included in the, should we include it with our report on
Yes,
Thursday?
you should. It should be included, yes.
And then that will make it automatically go to the board because they get the.
Yeah, no, that's right. Then it will be part of then everyone will then automatically receive a copy, and then you will have given notice to everybody about.
Right, and we'll just be clear that it's not a resolution, but a information item.
Correct.
Okay. Is there anything else that I've got in my tiredness?
It's gonna happen.
Let me just clarify with Susan Kent. If you like, I can just take that language and find a good place for it in the letter tomorrow morning with a fresh brain and send it over to you.
Okay.
No, that's fine. I'm actually, I won't be available till tomorrow afternoon anyway.
Okay. So by tomorrow afternoon, I'll get that to you.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of occupied up until around 2-3 o'clock. So don't worry, don't wake up early just to do that.
So I'll get it to you tomorrow, and then, you can put it anywhere you like, obviously. All right.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it's just, of course, I don't sign anything that I haven't read, in its final form.
Susan, is it going out Monday, or is it waiting for exec? Exec is Tuesday? I don't know. So maybe it doesn't so close.
Well, it doesn't need authorization. The only thing I would say is that if we waited until the beginning of next week, if there's, I don't know, is there a reason to? Except possibly to contemplate it for an extra day, and it's very fun.
No, thank you.
We've done a lot of content.
We
Okay,
contemplated
well,
it out.
then it seems that the consensus is that once we have a final version, it will be circulated to everyone who's here. And then it will then go out. Give everybody, if you have no objections, you must tell us, or any objections by X time. If not, it will go out.
Susan, what do we, in terms of going out, is that mail? Are we gonna email it, FedEx it?
That's a good question. That's a good question. Actually, that is a better, how do we have, first of all, do we have email addresses?
Yeah, we do.
Get it to people.
They're there. I sent an email with all the mailing and email addresses.
Well, then the traditional thing to do is you send it out email, it's immediate, and then you follow it up with hard copies with original signatures.
I definitely think we should follow it up with a hard copy.
Yeah, that's how, normally in my practice, that's how I do things. I get them out electronically, so they're in somebody's hands. I follow up with an original signature. And the original signature will go to whom it's addressed, and then, but hard copies will also go to whomever it's, is CC'd.
Email and US mail or.
Right. And the hard copies, of course, we can wait until, another day or so to get those out. Whatever.
Yeah. So following up on that, so phone calls, when do we start trying to reach out to them? A week, 2 weeks?
Well, it is the end of the summer and the people are on vacation.
I would say at this point, probably after Labor Day.
Yeah.
Would be
Okay,
logical.
everybody's on holiday.
Unless, look, if somebody reaches out to us, of course, that's a different story.
Right.
Sure.
If nobody reaches out to us, we shouldn't assume that it's been misplaced or ignored until after Labor Day. It is already, tomorrow's the 18th. Yeah, you're in the last third of the month.
And the phone number is on the letterhead to this office, right?
Yeah.
So, and yeah, any responses would come also, they should come into the office.
Okie dokie, it's a wrap, boys and girls.
Thanks, Brendan, for
Thank you,
bringing
guys.
us to the.
Thanks.
Great work, guys. This is why we do what we do.
Well, this is one step. I have to tell you, we're gonna have to, if a miracle happens, that's wonderful. If it doesn't, then we have to step it up and, embarrass agencies, government agencies.
I always tell people, if you're somebody who likes a high win rate, community board service is not for you. This is about people who believe in trying. This is about people who don't give up. It's not, if you're somebody who likes to win in every deal, this is not. We do not.
Our federal electeds, right?
We're seeking the people that we know are sympathetic.
We're starting with our allies. We want to start with the people that we know are our
People can
allies.
shut it down, and we don't want that.
Is Christopher Marche, is he,
He's awesome, but
is he gonna be on? He's on the council landmarks subcommittee. Why do we
I mean,
want
that's maybe the one thing that we want to give final consideration to is who is on that CC list.
Yeah,
Right.
that's good. That's good to do before the letter goes out. 'Cause that
I
always
mean,
seems-
look, and since we don't have the final version tonight, but tomorrow, Saturday, that's when you're gonna give some thought to that final list of CCs. So we could go out Monday.
But Susan, we don't want it just to get longer and longer, do we? I just think we.
It's not about length, it's about who do you think your allies are? Who do you want to be on that first pass? Because they are strong allies and you want to respect that fact.
I got that part, so I would like to hear who those are. No. It was a difficult issue. People couldn't stand up to it.
You know,
They had to turbulate. Oh,
Right.
you
For this, oh, they're just disappear.
Right. Well, you know, you are the landmarks people. You're the ones who are gonna tell me who's on that list more than I can. My knowledge of it is inferior to your knowledge.
What do you guys think about doing the ship out? Is that, I think they're gonna,
Okay, well, I think that's the one thing is thinking about that, and tomorrow, you know, Susan will send me, you know, with that one line addition, and then I will share it with you, assuming that I have no issues with it.
Okay,
I'll just send the resolutions along Susan Gammon tomorrow, and it can be added in when it's finished. If you just send me the finished copy, and if it goes separately at the executive meeting, that's okay.
Okay.
And eventually, but it should be a part of a reported thing from this meeting.
Right.
Okay. Good night, everyone.
thank you, everyone.
We still are not to the legendary times that we hear about.
Yeah, there are some legends you just don't want to be a part of.
And Eugene, I'm vague about who was where, so would you just send me the list?
Oh, the attendee list, yes, okay,
Okay, good.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Good night, everybody.
good night.